Chapter 288. There are quite a lot of people here. Lin Yi came to the square of the tiny spirit tower. Seeing the countless experts around the tower, he could not help but sigh. He muttered to himself as he walked towards the tiny spirit tower. Soon, he arrived in front of the tiny spirit tower. Seeing that Nangong Xie was also there, a faint smile appeared on his face. Captain! Captain! Zhang Xiaochu and the third prince also noticed Lin Ye's appearance and greeted Lin Yi. More than a dozen people greeted him, making many experts envious and curious. Did a monstrous genius of the cloudy sky kingdom have such great charm? Isn't this Lin Yi? You also came to challenge the tiny spirit tower? Gong Sun Yu looked at Lin Yi. A trace of killing intent flashed in his eyes as he spoke loudly. Is there a problem? Lin Yi frowned, but he didn't get angry and asked. Looking at you, could it be that you want to surpass Fairy Xie? Gong Sun Yu pointed at the crystal steel. As he spoke, he intentionally or unintentionally leaned towards Nangong Xie, as if he was standing on her side. This meant that he had a good relationship with Nangong Xie. This situation made the experts present frown, but most of them didn't dare to say anything. Seeing that Nangong Xie didn't object or get angry, Gong Sun Yu became even happier. His face was filled with pride and confidence, as if he was the victor. You guys? Lin Yi looked at the crystal steel and saw that Nangong Xie was actually ranked first, passing the 12th floor. He then pointed at Nangong Xie and Gong Sun Yu. He had an inquiring look on his face. I am friends with Fairy Xie, Gong Sun Yu said proudly. He started to fantasize in his heart. Since Nangong Xie didn't object to him standing with her, it meant that there was hope. If he could chase after Nangong Xie, wouldn't it be a great thing in life? Lin Yi chuckled. Then, he smiled and almost laughed out loud. Everyone present knew the meaning behind his action. He was looking down on Gong Sun Yu and even mocking him. Fairy Xie is peerless. Gong Sun Yu has admired me for a long time. Do you have any objections to us becoming friends? A trace of anger appeared on Gong Sun Yu's face. However, Lin Yi never looked at him again, treating him like air. He walked towards the tiny spirit tower. Junior brother. Seeing Lin Yi enter the tiny spirit tower without greeting her, Nangong Xie was stunned. Then, he shouted for Lin Yi. Unfortunately, Lin Yi had already disappeared from the tiny spirit pagoda. The word junior brother stunned all the monstrous geniuses present. Gong Sun Yu's expression kept changing. In the end, he became embarrassed. Even if he was beaten to death, he would never have thought that Lin Yi was actually Nangong Xie's junior brother. Looking at Nangong Xie's appearance, she definitely had a good relationship with Lin Yi. For a moment, countless gazes fell on Gong Sun Yu. No, I can't take it anymore. Let me have a laugh first. Ha 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 ha. The expression on the third prince's face became interesting, and then he said loudly. In the end, he couldn't help but laugh out loud. Zhang Xiaochu and the others also burst into laughter. They weren't the only ones. The other experts also couldn't help but laugh. Let me give you a kind reminder. It's best if you don't provoke my junior brother. He can crush you to death with a single finger. Nangong Xie turned around, and her slender feet moved. She put some distance between herself and Gong Sun Yu. Her voice was like the sound of nature. After saying that, she looked at the crystal steel, no longer paying attention to the experts present. Thank you for your reminder, Fairy Xie, Gong Sun Yu said hatefully. He already hated Nangong Xie and Lin Yi to the bone. If it wasn't for Nangong Xie, he wouldn't have been mocked by countless people. If it wasn't for Lin Yi pretending not to know Nangong Xie, he wouldn't have been humiliated. He hated it. Nangong Xie and Lin Yi were clearly senior and junior brothers. Yet, she pretended to be a stranger. At this moment, the crystal steel emitted a burst of light. The light was incomparably dazzling. Seeing this light, the experts present knew that Lin Yi had successfully passed the first floor. For a moment, many experts were envious. The first floor's amplitude was also one faint golden words. Lin Yi, first floor, passed. I told you that the captain would definitely pass. I wonder how many floors the captain can pass. When Zhang Xiaochu and the others saw that Lin Yi had successfully passed the first floor, they were all envious, but more excited. They were even happier than if they had passed the challenge themselves, because Lin Yi was their captain. In the tiny spirit tower, Lin Yi had a relaxed expression. After passing the first floor, he was swept by a ray of light and entered the second floor. The second floor. A young man appeared. This young man emitted a powerful aura. The challenge in the tiny spirit tower wasn't anything else. It was a challenge to oneself. It turned out that after entering the tiny spirit tower, someone with the same cultivation as oneself would appear. Once one killed the opponent, one would pass. Lin Yi instantly killed his opponent on the first floor. When he entered the second floor, it was still a young man who looked exactly the same. However, his opponent's cultivation was one level higher than his, reaching the celestial realm. Kill. Lin Yi didn't hesitate and punched out with his Heavenly Emperor Fist. Among his various attacks, the Heavenly Emperor Fist was the most powerful. With a punch, the space shattered. Boom! Without the slightest bit of suspense, the opponent of the Heaven Tier, 9x9 returned to 1, was beaten to the point of scattering. The second floor passed. A ray of light swept across, and Lin Yi was brought to the third floor. On the third floor, there was another opponent, a celestial realm transcendence golden body. Without hesitation, he fought directly. The third floor passed easily. On the fourth floor, there were two transcendence golden bodies. Outside the tiny spirit tower, all the experts were looking at the crystal stone tablet. On the crystal stone tablet, Lin Yi had passed the third floor in a short time, which shocked and envied countless experts. One had to know that the higher the floor of the tiny spirit tower, the higher the amplitude, and the higher the heaven list points obtained. Whoosh! Soon, the crystal stone tablet flashed with light. At the same time, there was a subtle notification sound. Lin Yi, fourth floor passed. Whoosh! Lin Yi, fifth floor passed. Whoosh! Lin Yi, sixth floor passed. Whoosh! Lin Yi, seventh floor passed. When Lin Yi passed the seventh floor, his name appeared in third place on the crystal stone tablet. The first place was Nangong Xie, and the second place was Ruolanyu. He and the second place were both at the seventh floor. At this moment, all the experts outside the tiny spirit tower were completely shocked. More people were curious if Lin Yi could reach the eighth floor and surpass Ruolanyu. They didn't have to wait long. Whoosh! The crystal stone tablet flashed with a dazzling light, and a subtle notification sound rang out. Lin Yi, eighth floor passed. His name had surpassed Ruolanyu and reached second place. However, his achievement in the tiny spirit tower was far from Nangong Xie's. At this moment, many experts had the thought that Lin Yi could surpass Nangong Xie. Chapter 289. Lin Yi successfully passed the eighth floor. On this floor, he faced 6 opponents. 6 monstrous geniuses with transcendence golden bodies. Under the Heavenly Emperor's Fist and Frigid Sky Aurora, he defeated all 6 opponents. On the 9th floor, 7 opponents, he passed. On the 10th floor, 8 opponents, he passed. On the 11th floor, 9 opponents, he passed. However, he had used the Silver Star Holy Sword and Azura Hell on this floor. Only then did he manage to defeat the 9 opponent. Even so, he had suffered injuries. Fortunately, he had successfully passed the 11th floor. Whoosh! Rays of light flashed and engulfed Lin Yi. When the rays of light disappeared, Lin Yi appeared on the 12th floor of the tiny spirit tower. Boom! He had just arrived on the 12th floor. Lin Yi felt an unparalleled saint aura. The saint aura was terrifying to the extreme. This saint aura was stronger than the half-step saints he had seen before. It was comparable to the saint aura. The sudden appearance of holy aura almost suppressed him. Only at this moment did he understand. His opponents were no longer heavenly humans, but half-true saints. However, they were stronger than ordinary half-true saints. They were heaven-defying half-true saints. In other words, this was the strength he would need to become a half-true saint in the future. First tribulation half-true saint. It was a terrifying tribulation. Even though they were only first tribulation half-true saints, their strength had surpassed first tribulation half-true saints by leaps and bounds. Just like Lin Yi, his cultivation was only at the heavenly 5-chi rising sun realm, but his strength was comparable to an ordinary half-true saint. This was truly retribution. He had been too strong outside, and now, he had tasted the disadvantages of being too strong. Kill! Lin Yi let out a roar. The silver star holy sword appeared in his hand, and 1,100 rays of sword domain and 2,400 rays of metal domain erupted. The metal domain and sword domain merged, and the silver star holy sword's holy aura erupted. With a slash of his sword, space was torn apart. Heaven and earth returned to normal in a flash of cold light. A first tribulation half-true saint had fallen. On the 12th floor, he passed. Lin Yi had just stopped, but he didn't give Lin Yi any time to rest. Rays of light appeared on the 13th floor, and Lin Yi was brought to the tiny spirit tower. Buzz, the opponent that appeared on the 13th floor, caused Lin Yi to frown. He had assumed that there would be 2 first tribulation half-true saints on the 13th floor. But he was wrong. There wasn't 1 first tribulation half-true saint on the 13th floor, but 2 second tribulation half-true saints. The 2 second tribulation half-true saints' holy auras suppressed Huang Xiaolong to the point of suffocation. If it was just an ordinary second tribulation half-true saint, Huang Xiaolong would still be able to deal with it. However, the 2 half-true saints in front of him were second tribulation half-true saints. Although he hadn't reached the half-step sage realm, the tiny spirit pagoda had already simulated his strength when he was a half-step sage. It allowed him to feel his strength when he was a half-step sage. Senior sister lost on the 13th level. I wonder what senior sister's cultivation level is? He must have reached the peak of the Transcendence golden body. Lin Yi thought to himself. To enter the Grand Xia world ruins, one had to be at the heaven realm. Those above the heaven realm were not allowed to enter. If it weren't for this restriction, he would have thought that Nangong Xie was already a half-saint or even a saint. Second tribulation half-true saint, he. Lin Yi looked at the 2 powerful opponents, and his divine sense moved. The Silver Star battle armor and Silver Star sacred sword appeared in his hands. The battle armor and Huang Xiaolong became one. With a single thought, the battle armor and the Silver Star sacred sword appeared automatically. At this moment, Lin Yi wore the Silver Star battle armor and held the Silver Star sacred sword in his hand. The set of 1,000 runes saint artifacts increased his strength by more than 10 times. This was the first time Huang Xiaolong had used a set of saint artifacts. He could feel the destructive power from the battle armor and the sacred sword. It felt as if he could shatter space with a single slash. Slash. Lin Yi let out a roar. The Silver Star sacred sword slashed towards one of his opponents. In an instant, space was torn apart. 2 second tribulation half-true saints erupted with terrifying power as they charged towards Lin Yi. In an instant, 3 figures clashed in the air. The battle armor and holy sword were a set of saint artifacts. Compared to a single saint artifact, the battle armor was 10 times stronger. Even if a second tribulation half-true saint's attack landed on the battle armor, it wouldn't be able to injure him. Lin Yi discovered that the battle armor could negate 90% of his opponent's attack. On top of that, his 9 divine dragon transformations and the first floor of the absolute defense. In the end, the attack he received was less than 1% of his opponent's attack. With his self-healing physique, a second tribulation half-true saint couldn't kill him. Moreover, the peerless 1,000 runes saint artifact in his hand was able to injure his opponent with every slash. Gotcha. 15 minutes later, A second tribulation half-true saint was killed. Lin Yi had a trace of blood at the corner of his mouth. After killing a second tribulation half-true saint, Lin Yi felt more relaxed. He found an opportunity and slashed out again. The second tribulation half-true saint fell. The battle ended at this moment. Lin Yi passed the tiny spirit tower's 13th floor. Swish! Light enveloped Lin Yi. It brought Lin Yi to the 14th floor. On the 14th floor there were 3 opponents. 3 third tribulation half-true saints. 15 minutes later, Lin Yi killed the 3 third tribulation half-true saints and successfully passed the 14th floor. On the 15th floor, he killed 3 fourth tribulation half-true saints, but he was killed by another 4th tribulation half-true saint. On the 15th floor of the tiny spirit tower, Lin Yi failed his challenge. When he woke up, he was already transported back to the bottom of the tiny spirit tower. Lin Yi's appearance jolted all the experts back to their senses. The way they looked at Lin Yi was as if they were looking at a monster. More than that, there was fear in their hearts. Wariness towards Lin Yi rose from the bottom of their hearts. Junior brother is amazing. A sweet smile appeared on Nangong Xia's beautiful face as she praised Lin Yi. Her voice was incomparably melodious, like the sound of nature, intoxicating countless experts. The 15th floor is too terrifying. Lin Yi shook his head with a faint smile on his face. If he was lucky, he could pass the 15th floor. However, he had no confidence in passing the 16th floor. He could imagine that there would be 5 fifth tribulation half-true saints on the 16th floor. Not to mention 5, even 1 fifth tribulation half-true saint would be enough to kill him. Of course, there was still hope for him to improve. After all, he still had a lot of room for improvement. As long as he was given enough time, passing the 15th floor wouldn't be a problem. Captain is still the strongest. Of course, how else could he become the captain? That's not entirely true. Not all captains are called Lin Yi. Gong Sun Yu isn't the captain, but in front of our captain, he's just an ant in front of a giant dragon. It's just that this ant thinks he's infallible. Xiaochu, don't say that about young Master Gong Sun. He's the Gong Sun family's #1 monster. Not to mention the Gong Sun family, the true saints were smacked in the face by our captain, and now the #1 monster is doing the same. I suspect that our captain is the Gong Sun family's nemesis. The third prince and the others. Every single one of them was happy for Lin Yi. Thinking about how they had been mocked by Gong Sun Yu, they felt incomparably satisfied. This kind of opportunity didn't come every day, and they wouldn't let it go. They would ruthlessly trample on Gong Sun Yu. For a moment, Gong Sun Yu's expression was incomparably ugly. Chapter 290. Lin Yi had passed the 14th floor of the tiny spirit tower. He was temporarily ranked first on the crystal steel. The second was his senior sister Nangong Xia. Their achievements in the tiny spirit tower were far ahead. They were 4 or 5 floors higher than the third-ranked Rolanyu. On the 14th floor, the amplitude value was 2. 4. In the future, Lin Yi's heavenly list value would be multiplied by 2. 4. Time passed by second. On the last day of the month, in the last hour, the rankings on the world's heavenly list were constantly changing. At the last moment, the rankings on the world's heavenly list finally stabilized. There was a new name in the top 10, Nangong Xia. Nangong Xia was originally ranked 18th. However, her amplitude value had reached 2, causing her heavenly list value to multiply by 2. This time, her heavenly list value had reached 680,000. She was ranked 5th. Lin Yi's ranking had also increased by a lot. Originally, he had 93,000 points. Now that his amplitude value had reached 4, his heavenly list value had reached 220,000. He was ranked 12th. With this change in rankings, Lin Yi and Nangong Xia entered the eyes of countless experts. Soon, the two became the focus of attention. They were the opponents that countless experts were most wary of. What was shocking was that Nangong Xia and Lin Yi were senior sister and junior brother. The two had a very good relationship. Of course, the heavenly list value was only a reference to the strength of an expert. Because the heavenly list value was high, it only meant that one had hunted a lot of demonic beasts. Hunting demonic beasts depended on luck and various auxiliary methods. It did not necessarily reflect one's true strength. Therefore, even if Lin Ye's heavenly list value was high, not many people were afraid of him, Lin Yi. Most of them wanted to kill Lin Yi and rob his treasures. Congratulations on reaching 12th place on the world's heavenly list. 12th place on the world's heavenly list, you have 1 day to cultivate in the 3rd floor of the Tower of Time. 12th place on the world's heavenly list, you will be rewarded with additional honor points. Your heavenly list value is 220,000. You will be rewarded with 22 honor points. The higher your ranking, the more honor points you will receive. In the castle, the world spirit appeared. Notification: Lin Yi received the reward of being ranked 12th on the heavenly rankings. Being ranked 12th on the heavenly rankings will also give him an additional 22 honor points. A chance to cultivate on the 3rd level for a day. What are honor points? When Lin Yi heard that there was a reward, he immediately became happy. The time ratio on the 3rd floor of the Tower of Time was 8:1. As for the honor points, Lin Yi really didn't know what they were, nor did they have any use for them. Honor points can only be obtained by those in the top 100 of the heavenly rankings. In this area of Tiny Spirit City, honor points are the most precious things. Once you surpass the heaven ranking points, you can only use honor points to trade in the 9th level of the Heavenly Treasure Pagoda. Moreover, with honor points, you can be transported to a secret realm. The better the secret realm, the more honor points will be consumed. The 9th floor of the Heavenly Treasure Pagoda. Every year, only those in the top 10 with honor points can enter once. Every year, the top 20 with honor points will be teleported to the top secret realm. The world spirit said calmly. Lin Yi listened carefully, not daring to miss a single word. As he listened, he couldn't help but become excited. The Great Xia World Ruins was really magical. It seemed that whether it was the heaven ranking points or honor points, he had to fight for it himself. Is it true that the higher the ranking on the heavenly rankings, the more honor points? Lin Yi asked curiously. Honor points could only be obtained by those in the top 100 of the heavenly rankings. If one wasn't in the top 100, there would be no honor points reward. That's right. First place, the heaven ranking points to honor points ratio is 1001. Second place, the heaven ranking points to honor points ratio is 2001. Third place, the heaven ranking points to honor points ratio is 3001. Fourth place, the heaven ranking points to honor points ratio is 4001. Fifth place, the heaven ranking points to honor points ratio is 4001. Sixth place, the heaven ranking points to honor points ratio is 5001. Seventh place, the heaven ranking points to honor points ratio is 5001. Eighth place, the heaven ranking points to honor points ratio is 6001. Ninth place, the heaven ranking points to honor points ratio is 6001. 10th place, the heaven ranking points to honor points ratio is 7001. 11th place, the heaven ranking points to honor points ratio is 10,001. 12th place, the heaven ranking points to honor points ratio is 10,001. After you to the 20th place, the ratio is 10,001. Every 10 places after you have a ratio of 1,000 more. When you reach the 100th place, the ratio will be decided by the world spirit's voice. When the voice sounded, a small golden font appeared. Lin Yi glanced at it. He realized that these small words were the ratio of the heaven ranking points to the honor points bonus reward. The higher the ranking, the higher the honor points bonus. The first place, the honor points awarded, was 10 times more than the 10th place. Coupled with the heaven ranking points, the first place would have dozens of times more honor points than the 10th place. It was terrifying to imagine. Seems like I have to fight for it, Lin Yi said seriously. No matter what, he had to fight for the top 3. Only the top 3 would have more honor points. And the rewards for the top 3 would be even more terrifying. The strong will always be strong, and this was reflected incisively and vividly here. If you are strong, you can get all kinds of heaven-defying benefits, which would naturally make you stronger. Time's up. The world spirit's voice sounded. When the voice fell, the world spirit had disappeared. Next month, I will increase my cultivation first. Lin Yi calmed down. He thought about it for a long time before deciding on his next plan. Originally, after hearing the words of the world spirit, he planned to hunt beasts tomorrow to get the heaven ranking points and honor points. However, after calming down, he changed his mind. His cultivation was too low, and the strength he could exert wasn't ideal. Next month, he had to go into seclusion to increase his strength. Only when his strength is strong, he could go deeper into the dark forest and earn more heaven ranking points. After making the decision, he walked toward the castle of the third prince. The matters in the team were all arranged by the third prince. He was completely a hands-off boss. However, he was still the soul of this team. Gather everyone together. I have something to inform you. After entering the castle of the third prince, Sun Wuyu, Lin Yi spoke and ordered the third prince. In the Cloud Sky Kingdom, he might have been more polite to the third prince and addressed him as Your Highness. However, in the Heavenly Sun Empire, in the world of the Grand Xia, he was the captain. He addressed the third prince as Your Highness. Okay, I will inform them now. The third prince nodded. He quickly cast out a communication rune. In Tiny Spirit City, everyone lived not far from each other. Ordinary communication runes were enough to inform each other. After doing all this, he waited for the other members to arrive. The third prince was curious. He didn't know what Lin Yi wanted to inform him about. This was a bit unusual. One should know that Lin Yi rarely summoned them. This time, it seemed to be something important. Chapter 291. In less than half an hour, all 13 of them arrived at the third prince's castle. Captain! Captain! When they saw Lin Yi, they all greeted Lin Yi. Finally, they sat quietly at the side, waiting for Lin Yi's orders. They were also curious, not knowing what Lin Yi wanted. Everyone is here. Let me tell you a piece of news, I believe you will like it. Lin Yi glanced at everyone. The original team, including him, had 31 people, but after entering the Great Xia World ruins, there were only 15 of them left. The other 16 had either fallen or gone missing. After a month of fighting together, Lin Yi understood them better. Although all of them had the common arrogance of a monster, they were not bad people. Therefore, he was willing to share the information and even help them. Captain, what's the news? Qian Wuxiu asked. He asked the question that was in everyone's mind. In the area of the Great Xia World ruins, the most precious thing is not the heavenless point. It's the honor points. I just found out about this. In the 9th floor of the Heavenly Treasure Pagoda, the treasures inside can only be traded with honor points. Moreover, honor points can teleport people to secret realms. Every year, there is a chance to teleport to the top secret realms. Of course, honor points can only be obtained by the top 200 of the heaven list. Lin Yi said calmly. He told them the information he got from the world spirit. This information was only available to the top 200 rankers. Zhang Xiaochu and the others were outside the top 200, so they naturally didn't know about this. His words made the third prince and the others completely stunned. After a long time, they woke up from the shock. There are actually such magical rewards and benefits. It's really unexpected. If you didn't enter the top 200, you might not even know about these rewards in 3 years. Entering the Great Xia World ruins, if your cultivation is low, you won't even be able to touch the surface. Captain, what are your arrangements? Captain, just say the word and we won't frown. Captain, you can arrange it. We'll listen to you. The first to react was the third prince, followed by Zhao Shijiao. Then, the others also came to a realization. Knowing that Lin Yi had come to inform them, he must have made arrangements. However, before this arrangement they had to state their position. Otherwise, the captain would not easily reveal his own arrangement. After all, this was related to everyone's interest. If they wanted to gain more benefits, they had to stand on the right side. For a moment they all expressed their choice in words, and they would always stand on Lin Yi's side. Regardless of whether it was in the Great Xia World ruins or after leaving it, they were not fools. Lin Yi was so heaven-defying. No matter when, he would be the target of all the superpowers. As long as his luck wasn't too bad, it wouldn't be a problem for him to become a peerless expert. Being able to build a good relationship with such a person who would become a peerless expert in the future would bring unexpected benefit. Next month, everyone will start cultivating. Enter the Tower of Time to cultivate. All of you, raise your cultivation to the Transcendence Golden Body. Those who have achieved the Transcendence Golden Body, increase your combat strength. When you become stronger, enter the depths of the Dark Forest and earn more points on the Heaven list. I hope that all of us can enter the top 100. Even half of us can enter the top 10. At the very least, all of us can enter the top 50. Lin Yi said calmly. His calm voice wasn't loud. However, when Zhang Xiaochu and the others heard it, they couldn't help but feel their blood boiling. They were shocked, curious, and doubtful. All of them could enter the top 100. Even half of them could enter the top 10. At the very least, all of them could enter the top 50. How crazy was this? Only Lin Yi dared to think like this. Captain, there are cultivation restrictions in the Tower of Time. Even if there's no time limit to cultivate on the second floor, you won't be able to increase your strength much in 1 month. After Lin Yi finished his words, everyone became silent. After a while, Zhuo Tianming spoke first. He mentioned the biggest problem that everyone was facing now. This was also unrealistic. Even with the Tower of Time, it was impossible to improve so much in 1 month. After Zhuo Tianming finished his words, everyone looked at Lin Yi. It wasn't that they doubted Lin Yi, but that this matter was too unrealistic. It was impossible to achieve. I'll give you 30 years. Can you do it? Lin Yi revealed a confident smile. He opened his mouth and said something that seemed to be a joke. 30 years. I can definitely do it. I don't need 30 years. Give me 10 years and I can reach the peak of Transcendence Golden Body. I'm now at the peak of Transcendence Golden Body. I'll reach the peak of Transcendence Golden Body in 1 year at most. Captain, didn't you say 1 month? In 30 years, I'll have a chance to become a sage. Zhang Xiaochu, Xiao Yanqing, and the others all thought that Lin Yi was joking to ease the atmosphere. Therefore, they all became much more relaxed. They didn't need 30 years at all. In 10 years at most, everyone could reach the peak of Transcendence Golden Body. I have a consumable treasure. It can change the rules of time. 32 days of cultivation inside is equivalent to only 1 day outside. Moreover, I've already tried it. In the Tower of Time, the time ratio of this treasure can be stacked. You can calculate it. If we spend 10 days on the 4th floor of the Tower of Time, how much time would it be outside? Lin Yi opened his mouth and said with a smile. With the 9-fold space integrated with him, he wasn't afraid of being coveted at all. Moreover, he only said that it was a consumable treasure. The consumable treasure was only a one-time use. It could be used 3 to 5 times. Let me calculate. If that's the case, then 10 days of cultivation on the 4th floor is equivalent to 14 years outside. Wang Zhe didn't hear it clearly and thought that it was just Lin Ye's imagination. Then, He calculated that 10 days of cultivation on the 4th floor of the Tower of Time was equivalent to 14 years outside. He didn't hear it clearly, but the others understood it clearly. Shock was written all over their faces. They looked at Lin Yi with scorching eyes. If there was really such a consumable treasure, it could completely solve the problem just now. They could improve their cultivation and strength, and then go to the depths of the dark forest to earn heavenlist points. Perhaps, as the captain said, all of them could enter the top 50. This is a secret. If it's leaked, I will punish him personally. I treat you sincerely. I don't ask for anything in return, but I don't want to see betrayal. Lin Yi didn't continue on this topic. Instead, he issued a warning. This warning seemed plain, but everyone knew what Lin Yi meant. If they dared to betray, they would suffer Lin Ye's crazy revenge. There was a kind of person who generally didn't threaten others. However, if you touched his bottom line, you would regret being born in this world. Lin Yi was that kind of person. Chapter 292. I will never betray you. Violators will be struck by lightning and will never be reincarnated. I, Zhang Xiaochu, swear to the heavenly Tao that if I betray you, I will die under the divine tribulation. I will always stand with the captain. If I betray you, I will be struck by the divine tribulation. For a moment, the third prince, Lai Tenyu, Zhang Xiaochu, and the others all swore on the martial Tao and the divine tribulation that they would always stand by Lin Ye's side, even if they were doomed eternally. Powerhouses were most afraid of inner demons and the divine tribulation. Swearing on inner demons and the divine tribulation was enough to prove their wisdom. They all understood that Lin Yi could take out his trump card to help them, which meant that he treated them as friends. Lin Yi had already gone to this step. What else could they say? In this world, the ones who accompanied them the most were not necessarily their parents and relatives. It was their master and friends of the same level. They were all peerless geniuses and were destined to walk a very, very long path. On the path of cultivation, they would have a long time. The lifespan of their parents was not necessarily as long as theirs. Lifespan was a natural chasm between powerhouses and mortals. Mortals could live for 100 years. On the other hand, powerful half-saints and saints could live for hundreds or even thousands of years. Therefore, only powerful friends of the same level could support each other and go further. In a powerhouse's life, it was definitely a great blessing to have a true friend. It was even more important than having a confidant. Lin Yi was undoubtedly the best candidate in their hearts. It could even be said that there was a huge gap between them and Lin Yi. To be friends with Lin Yi was to climb up the social ladder. Lin Yi could give them a ladder and an opportunity. If they did not seize it, then they were not worthy of being called geniuses. They deserved to be left far behind by other geniuses and powerhouses of the same level. What do I not need you to do? Because I treat you as friends and brothers. On the long path of cultivation, brothers will always be by my side. Lin Yi looked at Zhang Xiaochu and the others and said lightly. In this life, if he was destined to go far, he was destined to face unimaginable pressure. The path was long and difficult. He needed someone to help him. The person who helped him was not necessarily a peerless powerhouse or a peerless beauty. What he needed was someone who could make him feel at ease. On the long road of cultivation, brothers will always accompany each other. On the long road of cultivation, brothers will always accompany each other. Take your time on the path of cultivation. Brothers will always be by your side. Everyone said seriously. For a moment, everyone's blood boiled, and their heroic spirit soared to the heavens. At this moment, he felt that he had lived in vain. Now, this was what he truly wanted. A brother for a lifetime. Between brothers, there was no need for a gentle breeze or a gentle rain. There was only the moment when they were on the verge of life and death, when they could see their brothers sharing their joys and sorrows, not hesitating to die 100 deaths. Lin Yi did not allow Zhang Xiaochu and the others to return. Instead, he pulled them all into the ninefold space. He had already carved out an independent space in the ninefold space for Zhang Xiaochu and the others to cultivate in. As for the chaotic divine tree, he naturally wouldn't let them know. At least not for the time being. He still had to test them over a long period of time. Only through the test and the tempering of time could they receive better training. After everything was done, Lin Yi left the castle of the third prince and walked towards the Tower of Time. He had a chance to cultivate on the third floor of the Tower of Time one day. Naturally, he would not waste this opportunity. After greeting the guardian, he entered the third floor. One day later, Lin Yi entered the fourth floor. This time, he entered the fourth floor and entered secluded cultivation. The other powerhouses in Tiny Spirit City had already gone out to earn Heaven List Point. Even Nangong Xia had left Tiny Spirit City. She naturally knew the benefits of honor points. If she wanted to obtain more honor points, she had to have Heaven List points. Moreover, her goal was to rank first on the World Heaven List. Only Lin Ye's team seemed to have evaporated collectively. On the fourth floor of the Tower of Time, Lin Yi also began his secluded cultivation. What he cultivated was naturally still the Starry Sky Divine Formula to improve his cultivation realm, and the 3,000 Heavenly Tao to improve his divine thoughts. He spent part of his time comprehending and cultivating the Heavenly Sword 12 styles, Azura Hell, and various sage-level martial skills. What he cultivated the most was the domain of metal and domain of sword. Originally, he wanted to integrate the other 8 drops of the Great Sage's blood and cultivate other domains. However, after thinking about it, he finally decided to cultivate the domain of metal and domain of sword to the peak of the first level. Even if he could not reach the peak, he had to cultivate to the extent of using domains alone to fight. 1 year passed. 2 years passed. 3 years passed. 4 years passed. In the 5th year, Lin Ye's domain of metal finally reached 10,000 Dao, and his domain of sword also reached 10,000 Dao. Now, even if he did not use martial skills, he could use the domain of metal and domain of sword to fight alone. This was the most terrifying killing method of a powerhouse. Only a saint could possess 10,000 Dao domains. A 9th tribulation half-saint could only reach 9,999 Dao domains. And Lin Yi had now surpassed the half-saint limit and was comparable to a saint's domain. In other words, although his cultivation was only at the peak of the 5 Qi-Yang realm, his methods were comparable to a saint. Of course, if he encountered a real saint, he still had no power to fight back. In the 6th year, his cultivation broke through 9 to 1. In the 7th year, his cultivation reached the Transcendence Golden Body. In the 8th year, his Heavenly Emperor Fist reached the 5th stage. In the 9th year, his divine sense reached the peak of the 52nd order. In the 10th year, his Azura Purgatory reached the peak of the 1st stage. In the 11th year, his Frigid Heavens Aurora reached the 5th stage, and his Heavenly Extermination Finger reached the 4th stage. In the 12th year, his Heavenly Phoenix Divine Seal broke through and reached the Emperor's Seal. Moreover, his Heavenly Phoenix Divine Seal was upgraded from a Heaven rank martial skill to a Saint rank martial skill. In the same year, Silent Soul's domain of darkness reached 10,000 Dao domains, and his domain of light was activated. In the 13th year, the Azure Darkness Glaze advanced and reached the 2nd stage of germination. There were 18 green vines, and each vine's strength was comparable to a 2nd tribulation half-saint. When the 18 green vines attacked together, even a 4th tribulation half-saint would be defeated. In the 14th year, Lin Yi came out of seclusion. Zhang Xiaochu and the others also came out of seclusion. On this day, Lin Yi left the Tower of Time. 14 years in the 9-layer space was only 10 days in the outside world. Junior, if you have the chance, go take a look at the 9 cauldrons God suppression. Otherwise, you won't even be able to pass the half-saint tribulation. Becoming a saint is just a pipe dream. Seeing Lin Yi, the guardian took a deep look at Lin Yi and said to Lin Yi, "Senior, thank you for your guidance. This junior will bear it in mind." Lin Yi bowed deeply. He wasn't a fool. He knew that the guardian must know about the situation in the Tower of Time. He had already discovered Zhang Xiaochu and the others last time. However, the guardian didn't punish him. Instead, he kindly reminded him. This made Lin Yi very grateful. Chapter 293. After leaving the Tower of Time, Lin Yi returned to the castle. Inside the castle, he opened the ninefold space and called out Zhang Xiaochu and the others. There was a slight fluctuation in the space. One figure after another appeared in front of Lin Yi. Soon, Zhang Xiaochu and the third prince came out. The cultivation is over. 14 years have passed. Captain, how long has it been outside? Qian Wexiu asked. He himself had a transcendence golden body. After 14 years of secluded cultivation, his cultivation had already reached the peak of the transcendence golden body. Moreover, his other martial skills and means had also improved tremendously. Now, his strength was definitely 10 times stronger than 14 years ago. Hearing Qian Wexiu ask Lin Yi, Zhang Xiaochu and the others were also curious, even though Lin Yi had already made it very clear. But until now, they still didn't believe it because it was too heaven-defying. 14 years. If it was really as Lin Yi said, that only a short time had passed in the outside world, then they had really made a fortune. There are still 8 hours to go. It will be 11 days, Lin Yi said indifferently. His face was as calm as the wind, and his tone was nonchalant. At the beginning, he cultivated on the 3rd level for a day, and then he cultivated on the 4th level for 10 days. In total, it was about 11 days. However, Zhang Xiaochu and the others in the ninefold space had spent a full 14 years. They had cultivated in seclusion for 14 years. In these 14 years, everyone's cultivation strength had undergone tremendous changes. All of them had reached the peak of the Transcendence Golden Body. Awesome. Great. Others cultivated for 10 days, but I cultivated for 14 years. Haha, I've left them behind. Now, what I want the most is to have a big battle. After receiving Lin Ye's personal confirmation, the short silence in the castle was quickly broken. Everyone's faces were filled with excitement. Others might only have hunted a few beasts, but they had improved their cultivation strength by 14 years. If they hadn't experienced it personally, they wouldn't have believed that it was so heaven-defying. A big battle. Do you all think so? Lin Yi leaned back in his chair. His entire person was incomparably undisciplined, just like the second generation of an aristocratic family. However, everyone knew that if they really treated Lin Yi as a second-generation rich kid, they wouldn't even know how they died. Everyone was curious as to how much Lin Yi had improved in this short period of time. Although he didn't know how much Lin Yi had improved. However, they knew their limit. Lin Yi could crush them with one hand. Yes. Captain, what should we do now? I do want to have a big battle. Hearing Lin Ye's words, they all expressed their current thoughts in unison. They really wanted to have a big fight and see how strong they were. They also wanted to be sure that they weren't hallucinating. Alright, let's go to the dark forest. I specialize in killing Emperor-level demonic beasts, Lin Yi said with a smile. After saying that, he stood up and walked out of the castle. His action stunned Zhang Xiaochu and the others. They didn't expect Lin Yi to be more enthusiastic than them. Immediately, a happy smile appeared on everyone's faces and they hurriedly chased after him. They left Tiny Spirit City with Lin Yi. After leaving Tiny Spirit City, they passed through the land of yellow sand. With the experience from last time, everyone gathered together 2 hours later. After everyone had gathered, they flew towards the dark forest. Everyone had a Transcendence Golden Body, and their strength had reached the peak of the Transcendence Golden Body. Their speed was much faster than last time. Moreover, after everyone's strength reached the peak, they didn't have to worry about others. Captain, should we give the team a famous name? During the flight, His Royal Highness the Third Prince suggested that they give the team a name. In the future, everyone would act under the team name. The God Battling Team. Lin Yi didn't even think about it and casually said a name. Because this name felt very powerful. For him, a name was just a code. Even if the team's name was 123, as long as they were strong, they could still be famous and let all the strong people in the world know of their existence. If they weren't strong, no matter how famous the name was, it would be useless. The God Battling Team. That's a good name. Let's use this name. In the future, we will be the God Battling Team. That's a good name. Hearing this name, everyone agreed. Although this name was just casually given by Lin Yi, it was indeed loud and made people feel that it was extraordinary. Of course, it was extraordinary because the captain was Lin Yi and the team members. Tianyu, lead the way. After entering the dark forest, Lin Yi said to Lai Tenyu. He came out from the depths of the dark forest and was more familiar with the route. He knew that there were powerful monsters in those places. Although this time they didn't plan to enter the depths of the altar, their goal was mainly the Emperor-level monsters. Of course, it would be better if they could enter the altar smoothly. Whoosh whoosh, whoosh whoosh along the way, everyone flew quickly. However, they didn't dare to be careless. Although they didn't take the heaven-level monsters seriously with their current cultivation, they didn't dare to be careless, lest they fail miserably. If they encountered monsters, even if they encountered ordinary monsters, they had to fight like a lion hunting a rabbit. Time passed little by little. 6 hours later, the group was thousands of miles into the dark forest. The deeper they went, the more powerful the monsters they encountered. Gradually, it became rare to see heaven-level monsters. All the monsters they encountered were Emperor-level monsters. At this time, Lai Tenyu stopped. The others also stopped at the same time. They each took their positions and entered battle mode, ready to burst out an earth-shattering attack at any time. Captain! It's the territory of the sky-falling beasts in front. The sky-falling beasts live in groups. We have to be careful. Lai Tenyu's face was solemn. In the past, he had almost died here. When he came here again, he treated these demonic beasts as prey. The change was too big, and it had only been a month. Get ready to fight. Lin Yi nodded and then said. As soon as he finished speaking, Zhang Xiaochu and the others flew forward like arrows. They had already prepared an earth-shattering attack. When they encountered monsters, they would burst out with earth-shattering power. Roar roar, the sky-falling beasts lived in groups. Moreover, they were all Emperor-level monsters. Zhang Xiaochu and the others' aura and movements attracted the attention of the sky-falling beasts. They immediately roared and then attacked with earth-shattering attacks. The battle had begun. Lin Yi was floating in the air, watching everything. It was the first time they were fighting against Emperor-level monsters. He had to hold the line to prevent any accident. Shu Lin Ye's divine consciousness extended 100 miles. Everything within 100 miles was under his control. He found that there were thousands of Emperor-level monsters within 100 miles, and all of them were Emperor-level sky-falling beasts. The sky-falling beasts were not big, only 4 or 5 meters in size. However, they were extremely strong and extremely fast. Chapter 294. Fortunately, most of them were First Tribulation Emperor Realm demonic beasts. There were only a few Second Tribulation Emperor Realm demonic beasts. He sensed a dozen Third Tribulation Emperor Realm demonic beasts with his divine sense. Zhang Xiaochu and the others were at the peak of Transcendence Golden Body. However, there was a huge gap between the Heavenly Realm and the Half-True Saint Realm. No matter how monstrous they were, they could only fight against First or Second Tribulation Emperor Realm demonic beasts. If they encountered a Third Tribulation Emperor Realm demonic beasts, they would be defeated. Therefore, only he could deal with Third Tribulation Emperor Realm demonic beasts. He had been cultivating in seclusion in the Nine Heavens space for 14 years. His cultivation had reached the peak of Transcendence Golden Body, and his strength was 1,000 times stronger than when he was at the 5 Qi-Yang realm. The difference between before and after was like heaven and earth. Kill! Lin Yi stretched out his hand, and a stalk of grass appeared in front of him. The grass floated in the air, exuding boundless vitality. Then, the grass charged towards the countless Emperor Realm demonic beasts. Then, 18 green vines burst out from the grass. Each vine was 2 meters thick and 10,000 meters long. The green vines exuded destructive power. They were like 18 green divine dragons stirring the space. What's that? What a terrifying aura! Plant monsters? In the forest, the 18 green vines broke the space. Countless Emperor Realm demonic beasts and Zhang Xiaochu saw them. When they saw the green vines, they were shocked. Their expressions turned solemn. However, they soon discovered something. The green vines didn't attack them. Instead, they attacked the countless Emperor Realm demonic beasts. Each green vine was comparable to a second tribulation half-true saint. Every time he attacked, a demonic Emperor Realm beast would be killed. This was a complete massacre. The Emperor Realm demonic beasts were like insects in front of the green vines. They were killed in an instant. In the blink of an eye, more than 20 Emperor Realm demonic beasts were killed. The 18 green vines were equivalent to an expert with 18 arms. Moreover, each arm had the power of a second tribulation half-true saint. Captain's heavenly list value is soaring. That green vine monster belongs to Captain. Xiao Yanqing noticed that Lin Ye's heavenly list value was soaring, but he didn't make a move. Every time the green vine killed an Emperor-level demonic beast, Lin Ye's heavenly ranking points increased by 1 point. This discovery finally made him understand that the green vine monster was the captain's pet or helper. Otherwise, why would the green vine monster increase the captain's points on the heaven list after killing the monster? More importantly, the green vine didn't kill them. You're the monster. What made everyone almost fall over was that the green vine let out a clear and melodious voice. It was actually speaking human language. She was like a beautiful girl. In this situation, Zhang Xiaochu, Qian Wushu, and the others who were fighting were almost stunned by the green vine's voice. Fortunately, they reacted in time and avoided being seriously injured by the powerful Emperor-level demonic beast. Captain, this is too unfair. You have to leave some for us. Don't be too fast. Don't quarrel. If you want to quarrel, go to the side. That way, you won't have to do anything and we can kill more demonic beasts. Scram. Let's see who earns the most points on the heaven list today. The third prince and the others. Seeing the speed at which Qingming-colored glaze killed the demonic beasts, they were all envious. The point was that Lin Yi didn't even have to do anything and his heaven list points soared. Seeing that the Emperor-level demonic beasts were falling one by one, they immediately became anxious. If all the demonic beasts were killed, they would have nothing to kill. So, they shouted loudly. Lin Yi didn't say anything. Instead, he locked his divine sense on more than a dozen Third Tribulation Emperor-level demonic beasts. Although the Third Tribulation Emperor-level demonic beasts were not a disaster for Zhang Xiaochu and the others, they could only run away and kill them if they encountered them. Heavenly Emperor Fist, Level 5. Heaven falls and earth rends. Just as the third prince and the others were quarreling, a Third Tribulation Emperor-level demonic beast crossed space and appeared in front of Zhuo Tianming. Its huge claws slapped towards Zhuo Tianming fiercely. The Third Tribulation Emperor-level demonic beast attacked with all its strength. Even a monstrous expert like Zhuo Tianming would definitely die if he was hit. Naturally, Zhuo Tianming had already noticed the arrival of the Third Tribulation Emperor-level demonic beast, but it was too late for him to dodge. He could only watch the Third Tribulation Emperor-level demonic beast's claws coming down. Boom! An earth-shattering explosion sounded. The fist radiance pierced through space and descended with supreme Emperor might. The third tribulation Emperor-level demonic beast was smashed into the soil by the fist, sinking 10 meters deep. All the bones of the third tribulation Emperor-level demonic beast were shattered. It couldn't be more dead. Strong. Zhuo Tianming glanced at Lin Yi, who was in the air, and simply said one word. Before they went into seclusion to cultivate, they had also seen Lin Yi use this divine stage martial technique. But the power at that time was definitely not as strong as it was now. This punch had reached a kind of extreme state. With one punch it could destroy heaven and earth. He was confident that even if he resisted this punch with all his strength, he wouldn't be able to resist it. There was still a glimmer of hope if he reached the half-saint level. However, he had reached the half-saint level, and so had the captain. More importantly, this punch was only one of the captain's attacks. Rumble! Rumble! In the forest, the earth-shattering battle roared. After a quarter of an hour, the earth quieted down. Lin Yi and the others landed from the sky and began to quickly collect the materials of the demonic beast. Although they had reached the peak of the Transcendence Golden Body and were only one step away from the half-saint level, they generally didn't collect the materials of the demonic beast. However, the demonic beasts they killed were all Emperor-level demonic beasts. The materials of Emperor-level demonic beasts were extremely precious. This was also a terrifying amount of wealth. They definitely couldn't throw away the spoils of war. Of course, what they collected were only the demonic cores, fur, and essence blood of the Emperor-level demonic beast. They didn't care about the rest, and they couldn't put them away, even if each of them had hundreds of storage bags. "You need to rest," Lin Yi asked. All the Emperor-level demonic beasts within 100 miles were killed. It was nothing to him. Because he didn't fight much, killing the third tribulation Emperor-level demonic beasts was just a matter of time. The rest of the Emperor-level demonic beasts were killed by the Azure Hellish Glaze. On the other hand, Zhang Xiaochu and the others all relied on themselves to fight. Every demonic beast they faced was a battle above their level. "I don't need it. I don't need it either. The cultivation of the peak transcendence golden body is indeed convenient. I feel that as long as it's not a third tribulation Emperor-level demonic beast, it won't be a threat to me. I feel so good this time. I must fight to my heart's content today. Captain, let's continue." Yi Tianxing and the others all shook their heads, indicating that they didn't need to rest. Even the only girl in the team, Zhuge Ling, said that she didn't need to rest. Zhuge Ling was the only girl in the god-battling team. She was dressed in a light white dress and had a beautiful figure. However, she was wearing a veil, so her face couldn't be seen clearly. Or rather, in the entire god-battling team, only Lin Yi could see Zhuge Ling's face clearly. It was not because he was powerful, nor was it because his divine mind was terrifying. It was because Zhuge Ling was cultivating in the ninefold space. He was the master of the ninefold space. Even Zhuge Ling's veil couldn't hide her face. Therefore, he knew Zhuge Ling's face. She wasn't devastatingly beautiful, but she was still a one-in-a-million beauty. She was petite and delicate. Chapter 295. Okay, let's continue. Lin Yi nodded and stretched out his hand. The green darkness glaze turned into a blade of grass and landed on Lin Yi's shoulder. Everyone looked at the green darkness glaze curiously. What made them want to vomit blood was that the green darkness glaze emitted a silver-white light that enveloped it. Zhang Xiaochu and the others could no longer see it. They could only see a faint white light on Lin Yi's shoulder. Next, Lai Tenyu led the way. They headed towards the depths of the dark forest. Along the way there were only battles. For the entire night, the 15 of them fought without any rest. The battle only stopped when dawn came. After the crazy battle, they were finally exhausted and needed to rest. Moreover, they were already 15,000 miles deep into the dark forest. They were at most 2,000 to 3,000 miles away from the altar. What they encountered were groups of Emperor Realm demonic beasts. The Emperor Realm demonic beasts were getting stronger and stronger. In the last battle, 2 Emperor Realm demonic beasts appeared. Zhuge Ling suffered a little because of this. Fortunately, Lin Yi noticed it and used the space imprisonment to kill the Emperor Realm demonic beast. Zhuge Ling didn't suffer any serious injuries. When we go back this time, we will think of a way to cross the tribulation. Only by becoming a half-true saint can we display more strength. Qian Wuxiu said. Everyone was at the peak of the Transcendence golden body. Although they were strong enough to fight Emperor Realm demonic beasts, and their strength was comparable to the first or second tribulation half-true saints, their realm limited them. The difference in realm limited their talent and strength. Are you sure you can cross the first tribulation? Zhang Xiaochu looked at Qian Wuxiu and asked enviously. Since they dared to break through to the half-true saint realm, they had to be prepared to face the tribulation. Everyone present was a famous peerless expert. Moreover, they were still young. If they didn't have a certain degree of confidence, they wouldn't take the risk to cross the tribulation. If they hadn't reached the half-true saint realm yet, it was normal to take the risk. They were only 30 to 40 years old. There was still more than 100 years before the end of their lives. Naturally, they weren't in a hurry to break through to the half-true saint realm. My Qian family has a kind of body refining technique. It strengthens the physique and can effectively resist the tribulation. Qian Wuxiu said. Although the Qian family was not a superfamily, they were still a 4th-rank family. They were powerful and had a deep foundation. It was normal for them to have powerful body refining technique. In the Heavenly Treasure Pagoda, there's a 9 cauldrons god suppression. I can take a look at it when the time comes. Lin Yi said. The protector had told him that. He hadn't been to the Heavenly Treasure Pagoda, so he didn't know whether the 9 cauldrons suppressing god was a cultivation technique or a martial skill. However, from the protector's words, he was sure that the 9 cauldrons suppressing god was suitable for transcending tribulations and resisting divine tribulations. I've heard of it. The 9 cauldrons god suppression is a heaven-defying offensive martial skill. It is also a defensive martial skill with destructive power. It is placed on the 7th floor of the Heavenly Treasure Pagoda. However, purchasing the 9 cauldrons god suppression requires 500,000 heaven list points. The heavenly ranking is enough to intimidate 90% of the experts. Zhou Baiyu smiled bitterly. The 9 cauldrons suppressing gods was indeed powerful. It could be said that it was the most ideal martial skill in the hearts of countless experts. However, the terrifying heaven ranking points were daunting, and not many people were able to obtain the 9 cauldrons suppressing god. 500,000 heaven list points. Most of the monstrous experts wouldn't be able to reach 500,000 heaven list points in the 3 years they spent in the Great Xia World ruins. 500,000 heaven list points is very difficult for others. Is it difficult for us? Lin Ye's lips curled into a smile. Last night, they had earned more than 3,000 heaven list points. If this continued, as long as they were careful, it wouldn't be difficult to earn 100,000 heaven list points in a month. As their strength increased, 500,000 heaven list points wouldn't be a problem. Moreover, they had 3 years in the Great Xia World. They would only leave after 3 years. It's not difficult. It's not difficult. Hearing Lin Ye's words, everyone answered. As long as they worked hard, it was indeed not difficult. This was because they had the capital to work hard. As for the other experts, even if they were monstrous, they weren't as crazy as them. More importantly, they didn't have such a united brother. Not all the captains were called Lin Yi. Little Ling, how are you? Lin Yi looked at Zhuge Ling and asked. Captain, I'm fine. It's just a small injury. Zhuge Ling smiled. This injury wouldn't affect her battle. She just needed to rest a little. Alright, get ready to fight. Tianyu, tell us the situation. After asking Zhuge Ling, Lin Yi looked at Lai Tenyu. Now, they weren't far from the deepest part of the dark forest. Lai Tenyu was very familiar with the place. If they could reach the altar this time, it would be good. Even if they couldn't reach the altar, they would be able to kill countless Emperor-level monsters. I'm pretty sure. We're about 3,000 miles away from the altar. Now, we're in the deepest part of the dark forest. However, I don't think we've reached the center. I don't know where the center is. If we continue to move forward, we'll be attacked by Emperor-level monsters. There are Emperor-level monsters around the altar. The only thing they don't dare to get close to is the altar. Therefore, in the entire dark forest, the altar is the safest place. Lai Tenyu fell into deep thought. After a long time, he began to talk about the situation in the dark forest. However, he didn't know much because he had just escaped from the altar. He had been very careful along the way and didn't pay attention to anything else. Starting now. Everyone, suppress your breath and move forward. Avoid them if you can. If you can't, kill them with one blow. Don't make any noise that will attract the attention of other monsters. Our goal now is not the heaven list, but the altar. Lin Yi thought for a while and said his idea. After that, he looked at Zhang Xiaochu and the others. Understood. Everyone nodded. After making the decision, they began to move forward carefully. Zhuge Ling's injury wasn't serious, so it didn't affect her movement. Normally, it would only take them 2 hours to travel 3,000 miles. However, it took them 3 days to travel here. During these 3 days, they avoided all the powerful Emperor-level monsters and didn't fight a single battle. Finally, the group came to a stop 100 miles away from the altar. They had to stop, because there was a dense crowd of powerful Emperor-level monsters in front of them. Most of these monsters were in the second tribulation or the third tribulation. There were even many in the fourth tribulation or the fifth tribulation. Lin Yi and the others stood on a high place and roughly estimated. There were millions of Emperor-level monsters around the altar. Moreover, there were countless monsters within 2,000 miles of the altar. This was the gathering center of monsters. Not to mention that they were in the celestial being realm, even half-saints didn't dare to set foot here. Chapter 296. Hush! Looking at the densely packed demonic beasts, everyone was shocked. They were all Emperor-level demonic beasts. Did they have to pass through these demonic beasts to reach the sacrificial altar? Was this a joke? If we fly, we'll die faster. Most of these demonic beasts are flying demonic beasts. They are definitely the kings of the sky. The only way is to hide our aura and crawl over carefully. The premise is that we can't be discovered by the demonic beasts. Yang Yunshin smiled bitterly. It was indeed possible to crawl over, but how could they crawl over 50 kilometers? Moreover, there were so many Emperor-level demonic beasts outside the sacrificial altar. It was undoubtedly impossible not to attract their attention. I have an invisibility jade token. But each invisibility jade token can only be used 3 times. Xuefeng said. As he spoke, he took out an invisibility jade token from his storage bag. However, this invisibility jade token could only be used 3 times. After that, it would be broken. 3 times is not enough, Zhang Xiaochu said. Indeed, 3 times was not enough. Even if they were fast, it would still take them some time. During this period, they would definitely be discovered by the demonic beast. As long as they were discovered, they would be attacked by the demonic beast. By then, even if they were invisible, the attacks would still land and beat them back to their original form. We can only use it one more time. Give me the invisibility jade token. I'll take you there. Lin Yi opened his slightly closed eyes. He said to Xuefeng. Xuefeng only had more than 20 invisibility jade tokens. Each of them could get one. Obviously, one jade token couldn't cover 50 kilometers. Now, Lin Yi could only take them there alone. He gathered all the jade tokens on him. Captain! Qian Wexiu shouted. What's wrong? Lin Yi looked at Qian Wexiu. It's still unknown whether the sacrificial altar can be opened or not. I don't know whether it's worthwhile to waste one treasure. Qian Wexiu expressed his doubt. Additionally, in his opinion, if something happened to the sacrificial altar, he would have to waste one more treasure. That treasure could play an incredible role in the Tower of Time. It was really not worthwhile to waste it. The main reason was that he didn't know whether the sacrificial altar could be opened or not. Even if he opened it, would he be able to find any treasures or opportunities inside? I know some array patterns. If we don't go and take a look, how will we know if it can be opened? Lin Yi smiled. He knew that Thousand Dance Cultivator was thinking for him. After all, they had heard from Lin Yi that the treasure could only be used 3 times. If there was no harvest, then it would be a huge waste. They naturally did not know that Lin Ye's treasure was not a one-time use treasure, but a heaven-defying spatial treasure. Then we'll listen to the captain. Qian Wuxiu insisted and didn't say anything else. The others nodded in agreement with Lin Ye's idea. Then, Xuefeng handed the 22 invisibility jade talismans to Lin Yi. Lin Yi summoned all of them back into the ninefold space. After doing all this, his figure flashed and he flew towards the altar. However, he did not dare to fly in the air. If he did, he would become a target for countless demonic beasts. It would undoubtedly be courting death. On the ground, no matter what, it was impossible for all the demonic beasts to attack at once. Whoosh whoosh, whoosh whoosh. There was a subtle sound of something breaking through the air. Lin Yi moved forward at the fastest speed possible. In less than half an hour, he came into close contact with the demonic beasts. The demonic beasts discovered him. However, at the moment when the demonic beasts discovered him, Lin Yi had already activated the invisibility jade talisman. His whole person disappeared into thin air. The demonic beasts were obviously stunned. There was confusion and doubt in their eyes. It would never have thought that this human was right in front of it. It was just that it couldn't see him. The effect of the invisibility jade talisman appeared. Lin Yi took a deep breath. Then, he moved forward carefully. He checked whether his invisibility effect had disappeared at any time. Time passed by minute. Lin Yi walked through the dense demonic beast. It took him a full 6 hours to cover the distance of 100 miles. Finally, Lin Yi came to 500 meters away from the altar. Seeing the altar, Lin Ye's face revealed an excited smile. He hurriedly communicated with Biluo with his divine consciousness. "Help me take a look at this altar." Lin Yi was invisible beside a huge demonic beast. He didn't dare to make the slightest movement. His whole person was like a stone. However, he was communicating with Biluo in his sea of consciousness. "Ancient holy array. I'm afraid you can't open it." Biluo observed for a while and then said. This altar was an ancient holy altar. With Lin Ye's current strength, he couldn't open it at all. "Is there no way?" Lin Yi asked unwillingly. It was not easy to come here. If he returned empty-handed, he was really unwilling. "There is." Biluo didn't hesitate and directly said that there was a way. "What is it?" Lin Yi was stunned and suddenly became happy. As long as there was a way, it was worth a try. He couldn't just go back like this. Then, he asked Biluo if there was any way. There was no time to lose. The sooner he opened the altar, the better. Sacrifice the blood essence of these emperor-level demonic beasts to heaven. Mobilize the power of heaven and earth. I'll use the power of the blood sacrifice to open the altar. Biluo said seriously. To put it bluntly, Lin Ye's cultivation was too low. If he used her power, Lin Yi couldn't bear it at all. If he didn't use her power, Lin Yi couldn't open the altar. However, if she did not rely on Lin Yi, she would not be able to activate the altar. Of course, in addition to the blood sacrifice to heaven, there was another way, and that was to let Lin Yi break through to the semi-sage realm. After reaching the semi-sage realm, Lin Yi would be more powerful and could use her power to open the altar. At present, he could only use the blood sacrifice to heaven. How much do you need? Do you know what this altar is used for? Hearing Biluo's words, Lin Yi couldn't help but be shocked. The blood sacrifice to heaven must be a terrifying amount of blood essence. Also, he wanted to know what was under the altar. Even if he didn't know what was inside, he at least wanted to know if this altar was a seal to suppress evil. If he worked hard to open the seal and release the demon, he would cry to death. Wait a moment, Biluo said. Lin Yi knew that Biluo was observing the altar. He waited for a full 15 minutes. Biluo was more or less sure. There are 7 array cores. This is an ancient sacred array. The sealing method is very ancient. Moreover, according to my estimation, there are at least 8 such altars. The 8 altars are related to each other. The moment the 9 altars are activated, there will be a shocking change. Although the seal is from ancient times and the passage of time has loosened the seal, to open this altar, you need at least 3 million blood essence of demonic beast. The purer the blood essence, the better, Biluo said with certainty. Her tone showed that she was also interested in the altar. If there was a sacred array seal in ancient times, it must be extraordinary. 3 million blood essence of demonic beasts. Lin Yi was shocked. 3 million blood essence of demonic beasts meant that he had to kill 3 million demonic beasts. How long would it take for him to do it alone? Chapter 297. After confirming, Lin Ye's figure flashed. A terrifying aura erupted, and his figure was exposed to the sight of the beasts. Roar. The roar shook the sky. The beasts were extremely angry and wanted to tear Lin Yi apart. However, the moment they discovered Lin Ye's figure had already disappeared. When he reappeared, he had already entered the altar. Buzz. On the altar, a ray of light burst out. The light enveloped the entire altar. The violent and angry beasts stopped abruptly at the edge of the altar. Their blood-red eyes made people's hearts palpitate. On the altar, after confirming that the beasts did not dare to come over, Lin Yi relaxed a little. If the beasts could come over, even if he was 10 times or 100 times stronger, he would disappear in an instant. Of course, it was impossible for him to disappear, because the outcome was even more miserable than vanishing into thin air. They would be treated as a delicious meal by these powerful demonic beasts, and they would end up without a corpse remaining. They would truly die without a burial ground. His divine thought moved. The Kong family's gate opened. Zhang Xiaochu and the others appeared in front of Lin Yi. As soon as they came out, they found that they were surrounded by terrifying emperor-level beasts. Everyone was scared silly. With so many emperor-level beasts surrounding them, how could they survive? Fortunately, they soon found that these beasts did not dare to come over. "Captain, you did it," the third prince said. He was extremely surprised. He didn't have much hope, but he didn't expect that Lin Yi really did it. He brought all of them to the altar, and the beasts could only stare from a distance. "Let me tell you the situation first. This altar is very difficult to open," Lin Yi said. He looked at Zhang Xiaochu and the others. Hearing Lin Ye's words, they were silent, but soon accepted the reality. "Captain, should we go back now? Or we can fight here," Lai Tenyu said. He was more familiar with this place. The last time he was trapped here for 3 days, he knew this place like the back of his hand. Although he couldn't open the altar now, he could rely on the geographical advantage here to hunt beasts. It is indeed an excellent place. There are endless demonic beasts. If you're tired, you can hide inside. However, there are only 3rd or 4th tribulation demonic beasts here. If we lure those 8th or 9th tribulation demonic beasts here, we won't be able to kill them even if they can't do anything to us. This place is basically filled with 3rd or 4th tribulation demonic beasts. 8th or 9th tribulation demonic beasts are rare. They should be further away or in the center. For a moment, more than a dozen people began to discuss. Everyone was eager to give it a try, wanting to hunt demonic beasts here. Activate the altar. There is a way. Lin Yi waited for Zhang Xiaochu and the others to finish before he spoke. Captain, what's the plan? Lai Tenyu looked at Lin Yi curiously. His eyes were filled with excitement and anticipation. The others also looked at Lin Yi at this moment. If there was really a way to open the altar, they might be able to enter and obtain some opportunities. Blood sacrifice to the heavens. 3 million demonic beast blood essence. Lin Yi said seriously. How terrifying was the blood essence of 3 million demonic beasts? There were more than 3 million demonic beasts around the altar. Moreover, the closer they were to the center of the dark forest, the more demonic beasts there were, and the stronger they were. However, it was not easy to hunt these demonic beasts. 3 million. 3 million. When everyone heard Lin Ye's words, they were shocked by the number of 3 million demonic beasts. 3 million demonic beasts were terrifying to even think about. 3 million demonic beasts here are all 3rd or 4th tribulation demonic beasts. There are also 5th tribulation emperor-level demonic beasts. That's too difficult. If we really kill 3 million emperor-level demonic beasts, and each demonic beast is worth 2 points on the heaven list, that's 6 million points. That's too shocking. If one person fights non-stop every day, he can kill 2,000 demonic beasts. That's 30,000 points a day. It will take him 100 days to kill 3 million demonic beasts. Look carefully. All the demonic beasts here are 3rd or 4th tribulation demonic beasts. The sound of discussion was incessant. The dozen people were discussing intensely. They all wanted to kill demonic beasts to earn heaven list points and activate the altar. However, it was too difficult. Let's work together. 2 people in a team. I'll hold the line. We'll take turns to rest and fight. It's an endless battle, Lin Yi said. All of them had a Sky Realm golden body and were only a step away from the half-true Saint Realm. In other words, they were only 1 tribulation away from the half-true Saint Realm. Their strength was comparable to a first tribulation half-true Saint. If they fought, they could kill a second tribulation half-true Saint. They might be able to fight against a third tribulation half-true Saint, but they didn't have much confidence in killing a third tribulation half-true Saint. Right now, all the Emperor-level demonic beasts they were facing were 3rd or 4th tribulation demonic beasts. Moreover, they were densely packed. Not to mention killing them, they had to be careful even if they could survive. Let's give it a try. Don't we want to earn heaven list points to become stronger? Now that the opportunity is right in front of us, we can't give it up. Otherwise, we'll become a joke. I'll join forces with Xiaochu. Tianyu, let's join forces. Wang Zhe, Xiao Yanqing will join forces with you. Captain is the only one left. Captain is strong. He's stronger than all of us combined. Even if we all join forces, we won't be able to compete with his green vine. We should focus on ourselves. Everyone nodded their heads in agreement with Lin Ye's plan. Although it was difficult, they didn't back down. After cultivating in seclusion for 14 years, they had finally become stronger. In order to fight, they didn't even rest. They came to the dark forest to find demonic beasts to earn heaven list point. Now that they had finally found countless demonic beasts, they naturally couldn't retreat. After they were ready, the long and endless battle had begun. Among the 15 people, only Lin Yi didn't make a move. The others formed small teams of 2 and fought against the demonic beasts together. One was the main attacker, while the other was the support. When they encountered danger, they would hide in the altar at the first moment. They killed the demonic beasts and collected their materials at the same time. They collected their blood essence and stored it together to sacrifice it to the heavens. Half a day passed. Finally, someone couldn't bear it anymore and had to enter the altar to rest. However, while they were resting, Lin Ye's divine thought moved, and the azure glaze appeared in front of him. Suddenly, the azure glaze erupted with earth-shattering power. It turned into 18 green vines and attacked the demonic beast. Rumble, rumble, the demonic beasts fell one by one. Lin Yi floated in the air. From time to time, he would point his finger. From time to time, he would punch out. From time to time, he would crush the demonic beast. From time to time, he would crush the demonic beast. Every time he attacked, a powerful emperor-level demonic beast would die. Whether it was a 3-tribulation emperor-level demonic beast or a 4-tribulation emperor-level demonic beast, they couldn't escape the fate of being killed in one blow. For a moment, Zhang Xiaochu and the others were stunned. They also understood how strong Lin Yi was. Compared with Lin Yi, they were on a completely different level. They were in the same realm. Lin Yi killed the 3-tribulation and 4-tribulation demonic beasts easily. Chapter 298. 2 hours later, Zhang Xiaochu and the others recovered. The battle continued. At this time, Lin Yi returned to the altar, and the Qing Ming Li also stopped. However, the Qing Ming Li did not go to the ninefold space to cultivate. Instead, it kept devouring the demonic aura of the beast. They took turns to fight and rest. Around the altar, the battle never stopped. Time passed day by day. On the altar, there was a pool with a sealing array, which contained the blood essence of countless beasts. Each beast had a pot of blood essence, which contained unparalleled power. Finally, on the 69th day, 9 of the pools formed by the sealing formation were filled with water. The total number of demonic beasts killed by Lin Yi and the others had reached 3 million. The battle finally stopped. After constant life and death battles, Zhang Xiaochu and the others had all reached the critical point of the Transcendence Golden Body. Their strength had reached a terrifying level. Now, even if they faced a 3-tribulation emperor-level beast alone, they could easily kill it. Fighting made them stronger. Seeing their heaven list points increasing, they were all very excited. After more than 2 months of constant fighting, everyone's heaven list points had accumulated to more than 1 million. The one with the most points was naturally Lin Yi. In 2 months and 9 days, Lin Yi's heaven list points reached 278 million. His heaven list points were twice as many as the others. There was a gap between the heaven list points of the others, but the gap was not big. Qian Wuxiu, among the team members, had the most heaven list points. Her heaven list points were 1,510,000. The one with the least was Lin Yang, whose heaven list points were 139,000. In the first half of the month, on the last day of the month, the victory team all entered the top 100 of the world's heaven list. Lin Yi even reached the 6th place, and Nangong Xia reached the 3rd place. On the last day of the second month, the victory team all entered the top 50. Lin Yi ranked 4th, and Nangong Xia ranked 2nd. This month was 5 days away. However, Lin Yi's heaven list points had reached 149,000 this month. World Spirit. What's the world's heaven list ranking now? Everyone retreated to the altar. Lin Yi spoke, summoning the world spirit. Suddenly, a ray of light appeared, and golden words flickered in the air. This was the world spirit. When the world spirit appeared, it asked about the heaven ranking list rankings and the number of points on the heaven ranking list. This is the ranking of the top 1,000 in the world. The final ranking will be in the last 2 hours of the last day of the month. Countless tiny golden words appeared on the world spirit. The small print recorded the current ranking and value of the heaven list. Lin Yi, 1st place, heaven ranking points, 1490,000. Nangong Xia, 2nd place, heavenly ranking points, 1410,000. Ruolan Yu, 3rd heaven ranking, 126,000 points. Mu Zhili, 4th, heavenly ranking, 870,000 points. Qian Wuxiu, 13th, 680,000 points on the heaven ranking. Zhang Xiaochu, 14th, Heaven ranking, 670,000 points. Yang Yunshin, 15th, 668,000 points on the Heaven list. Lin Yi, Zhang Xiaochu, and the others all stared at the Heaven ranking list displayed on the World Spirit. When they saw the temporary ranking of the Heaven ranking list, they were all extremely excited. Something that they didn't even dare to dream of was achieved in just 3 months. Lin Yang, who was ranked the lowest, was also ranked 39th. He successfully entered the top 40. What made them feel regretful was that, if the amplitude was 1 or 2, their Heaven ranking points would be higher and their ranking would be higher. However, this ranking didn't include the amplitude value. Only the last 2 hours of the month's Heaven ranking list would include the amplitude value. At that time, their ranking would definitely drop a little, because the others had the amplitude value. Captain is first, steady as a rock. We don't have the amplitude value. His Royal Highness the Third Prince said. Lin Ye's amplitude value was 2.4. In the world of Great Xia, no one could surpass him. When Lin Ye's amplitude value was added, the final number of the Heaven ranking list would be even more shocking. Someone who can threaten our captain. Only Captain's senior sister, Nangong Xia. Ruolan, you can pose a little threat to Captain. Zhuge Ling said. The top 3 of the Heaven ranking list were all in the millions. The one who could threaten Lin Ye's throne the most was Nangong Xia. This was because Nangong Xia reached the 12th floor in her first challenge of the tiny spirit tower, 2 floors lower than Lin Yi. Whether it was the Heaven ranking or amplitude value, the difference between her and Lin Yi wasn't that big. The main thing was that Lin Yi couldn't return and couldn't challenge the tiny spirit tower. On the other hand, Nangong Xia could challenge the tiny spirit tower. For someone as heaven-defying as Nangong Xia, the chances of passing the tiny spirit tower were very high. Captain, we are now trying to break through the Heaven ranking list. Or are you preparing to sacrifice blood to the heavens? Shuefeng asked. Although they had already prepared all the blood, there were still 5 days until the end of the month. They all wanted to break through the Heaven ranking list in the last 5 days and stabilize it. The higher the ranking, the more honor points. You guys continue. I'm preparing to sacrifice to the heavens. Lin Yi opened his mouth and said. After saying that, he closed his eyes and communicated with Biluo with his divine sense to prepare for the blood sacrifice to the heavens. However, the green darkness-colored glaze didn't stay idle. 18 green vines stirred the space and helped Lin Yi kill Emperor-class demonic beasts. Zhang Xiaochu and the rest were already numb to it, or perhaps they were already used to it. They understood that even if Lin Yi were to lie down and sleep, no one in the Heaven ranking list would be able to shake him. Next, Lin Yi busied himself and began to arrange, according to Biluo's instructions. In other words, Biluo was borrowing his power to arrange the array for the blood sacrifice to the heavens. That human is too monstrous. The 14th floor of the tiny spirit tower, and he entered the top 10 in the 2nd month. Now he's in the 1st place. It seems like his 1st place is in the bag. What's even more puzzling is that his followers have all entered the top 50. Among the top 30, 10 of them are his followers. This is too terrifying. Lin Yi, the monstrous genius of the Tianyang Empire, one of the 10 team leaders. His team is too terrifying. Why didn't I choose to follow him? If I were to follow him, my name would be in the top 50 of the Heaven ranking list. But now, I'm not even in the top 1,000. Their Heaven ranking list value is still rising. Even without the amplitude value, no one can shake their ranking. How did that group of trash become so powerful? They must have cheated. As time passed, it was the last day of the month again. Countless monstrous experts returned to Tiny Spirit City. Looking at the names of the victorious team members on the Heaven ranking list, countless experts were envious. They couldn't figure out why Lin Ye's team was so terrifying. In just 3 months, all of them had entered the top 50 of the Heaven ranking list. If this continued, half of the top 10 of the heaven ranking list would belong to him. In the past 2 months, the hottest topic. It was about Lin Yi and his team members. It was because they were too dazzling. In such a short time, they had surpassed 99% of the people and reached the highest ranking in the heaven ranking list. Moreover, his team's ranking was very close. They were obviously geniuses that were looked down upon by the other team leaders, but in the end they were the strongest. Tianyang Empire 10 teams. Chapter 299. At the end of the 4th month after entering the Great Xia World ruins, the last 2 hours, countless powerhouses stared at the changes in the world's heaven list. No matter how the heaven list changed, there were 4 names that never changed. Those were the top 4. First place was Lin Yi, second place was Nangong Xia, third place was Ruolanyu, and fourth place was Mu Zhili. These 4 people's heaven list points exceeded 1 million, and their amplitude values were also the highest. As time passed by, the world's heaven list changed once. This was due to the amplitude value. With amplitude value, the heaven list points would increase, and the ranking would increase. Without amplitude value, there would be no increase, and the ranking would drop. World's heaven list ranking. First place, Lin Yi, amplitude value 2. 4. Heaven list points, 388,8000 point. Second place, Nangong Xia, amplitude value 2. 5. Heaven list points, 365,000 point. Third place, Ruolanyu, amplitude value 1. 9. Heaven list points, 247,000 point. Fourth place, Mu Zhili, amplitude value 1. 7. Heaven list points, 147,000 point. 10th place, Qian Wuxiu, amplitude value 1. 1. Heaven list points, 728,000 point. 11th place. The world's heaven lists ranking was fixed. The top 20's heaven list points made people crazy with envy. Because the top 20's heaven list points were all above 500,000. 500,000 heaven list points, this number was something that 90% of the monstrous powerhouses couldn't reach in 3 years. And the top 20 of the world's heaven list was reached in just 1 month. The most crazy thing was, naturally it was the top 4. Especially the first and second place. The two's heaven list points reached more than 3 million, close to 4 million. The total value of the top 10's heaven list points was equivalent to the total value of the world's monstrous heaven list point. That Qian Wuxiu and Zhang Xiaochu, what a pity. Their amplitude value is only 1. 1. If their amplitude value reaches 1. 5, they would definitely be in the top 10. They shouldn't be back yet, and won't have the chance to challenge the tiny spirit tower. Next month, I'm really curious to what level they can reach. Crazy, this is crazy. That Lin Yi and that Nangong Xia have 3 to 4 million heaven ranking points. They won't even be able to use them all up. After looking at the rankings and points of the heaven leaderboard, countless experts discussed endlessly. Most of them were envious and jealous. If the heaven leaderboard points could be snatched, they really wanted to snatch the top 3 heaven leaderboard points. However, this was just a thought. If they could really snatch it, they wouldn't be able to. They didn't even dare to think about snatching it. The world heaven ranking has ended. Thank you, Captain. At night in the dark forest, the roars of the demonic beasts never stopped. But at the altar, it was incomparably quiet. If one didn't look carefully, one wouldn't be able to see that the altar was surrounded by densely packed Emperor-level demon beasts. Even though more than 3 million Emperor-level demon beasts had been killed, it was still a drop in the ocean compared to the endless number of demon beasts. The densely packed demonic beasts were like a pitch-black ocean spreading to the horizon. On the altar in the center of the densely packed demonic beasts, 15 people gathered together. At this moment, all the preparations for the blood essence sacrifice were ready. They could start the sacrifice at any time and open the altar. However, Lin Yi didn't start immediately. Instead, he waited for Zhang Xiaochu and the others to summon the World Spirit to finish reading the World Heaven Leaderboard. Qian Wuxiu and the others were extremely excited when they saw their final rankings and Heaven Leaderboard point. They were extremely grateful to Lin Yi. If it weren't for Lin Yi leading them, they wouldn't even be able to enter the World Heaven Leaderboard like the other monstrous experts. Or they would have been eaten by the demon beasts long ago. This is the result of your own efforts. Lin Yi smiled slightly. He was just a guide. They still had to rely on themselves to become stronger. After saying that, Lin Yi looked at his ID crystal to check the Heaven Leaderboard points and honor points, as well as the rewards on the World Heaven Leaderboard. Heaven Leaderboard points, a total of 51 million. Additional honor points, a ratio of 1,000. 1. Honor points, a total of 4,901 8 days of free cultivation on the 4th floor of the Tower of Time. 4 free entries into the Heavenly Treasure Pagoda. Looking at the rewards on the ID crystal, Lin Yi revealed a smile. 51 million Heaven Leaderboard points, 4,900 honor points. This was the result of 3 months of hard work. As for the 8 days of free cultivation on the 4th floor of the Tower of Time and the 4 free entries into the Heavenly Treasure Pagoda, it was no longer important to him. Because he had Heaven Leaderboard points, he didn't care about this little bit. Let's all rest. We'll worship the heavens tomorrow. In the wee hours of the morning, Zhang Xiaochu and the others were still chatting and laughing. Lin Yi reminded them. After saying that, he sat down cross-legged and began to cultivate. For the strong, the best rest was cultivation, especially after a battle where they had overexerted themselves. Cultivation could not only recover their vital essence, but also their physical strength and spirit. Could be said that it was the best way to rest. Okay. Hearing Lin Ye's words, they stopped talking. They prepared to rest and recover their spirit so that they could welcome the worship of the heavens tomorrow in peak condition. The biggest expectation in their hearts was to wait for tomorrow. Tomorrow would be the most crucial day. If they couldn't open the altar, they would have to think of a way to leave or continue to fight for the Heaven Leaderboard point. After a while, everyone entered the state of cultivation. Outside, it was a sea of monsters. There were millions of monsters. Time passed by minute. In the cold morning, everyone on the altar felt their blood boiling. They had been waiting for this moment for more than 2 months. After fighting for more than 2 months, it was finally the most crucial moment. The worship of the heavens might attract a heavenly tribulation. Moreover, the heavenly tribulation will attract a divine tribulation. Those who are confident in surviving the divine tribulation, you might as well give it a try. If not, don't try it. Think about it carefully and don't be rash. Lin Yi said seriously. After saying that, they were given 2 hours to think about it. 2 hours later, Lin Yi began the worship of the heavens. Lin Yi waved his hands, and mysterious runes appeared from his hands. He kept chanting mysterious and obscure chant. Gradually, everything in the world changed color. In the void, there were bursts of thunder. As time passed, endless electric arcs flashed. Chi at this moment, Lin Yi pointed 9 times in a row, and the mysterious runes landed on the blood essence. Suddenly, the thunder and electric arcs descended and merged with the blood essence. Boom! When the blood essence merged with the thunder and electric arcs, the blood essence burned. The blood essence rushed into the sky, and the void was torn apart by the blood force. Endless astral winds raged. At this moment, the heavens were angry. Endless heavenly tribulations descended. Every heavenly tribulation could destroy the world. The heavenly tribulations sensed the critical point of Zhang Xiaochu and the others' transcendence golden bodies on the altar. Suddenly, a divine tribulation descended. The power of the divine tribulation was not inferior to the heavenly tribulation. The power of more than 3 million monsters' blood essence was unparalleled. The heavenly tribulations and divine tribulations descended crazily. Zhang Xiaochu and the others were surrounded by the heavenly tribulations and divine tribulations. If they were not careful, they would die under the heavenly tribulations and divine tribulations. If it was just a divine tribulation, they would not die. But now, the worship of the heavens, the blood force was extremely powerful, and the heavenly tribulations and divine tribulations were terrifying. Chapter 300. Zhang Xiaochu and the others did not hesitate at all and welcomed the divine tribulation at the same time. They were going to take the first step to become a half-saint and welcome the first divine tribulation of their lives. For a moment, all 14 of them were going through the divine tribulation. But they did not know that at this moment, Lin Yi was sitting cross-legged. However, in the void, a beautiful and cold shadow flashed quickly. It was a peerless goddess. If anyone saw it, they would definitely think it was the Jiutian goddess, Di Chun. She was Biluo. She did not have a body. Now, she was exhausting herself to leave Lin Yi and help Lin Yi open the altar with the help of her blood force. Time passed by minute by minute. The altar burst out with a shocking light. The unparalleled saint power was enough to crush any creature below the saint level into powder. Countless demonic beasts were turned into ashes at this moment. Lin Yi and the others were wrapped in the light on the altar and were not affected at all. Open the altar. But it can only last for 8 hours. Don't waste your energy. Before the 8 drops of blood of the great sage are completely integrated, you can't step on the path of a saint. You'd better hurry and refine the blood of the great sage. If you want to become a half-saint, you have to at least integrate the blood of the great sage that has refined the 5 elements of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. Biluo was exhausted, and she was incomparably weak. It was the first time that Lin Yi saw Biluo so weak. He knew that in order to open the altar, she had exhausted herself. After that, she disappeared and returned to Lin Ye's sea of consciousness and fell into a deep sleep. Hearing Biluo's words, Lin Yi was stunned and then suddenly understood. No wonder he had always wanted to welcome the divine tribulation but could not get it. Instead, all he got was the heavenly tribulation. Now that he thought about it, he did not know whether to laugh or cry. Moreover, it was not difficult for him to think that Biluo was too weak because she had exhausted herself. Otherwise, she would have something to say to him about his divine tribulation. Forget it. Lin Yi did not make unnecessary efforts. He stopped thinking about the divine tribulation. Instead, it was to resist the heavenly tribulation and wait for Zhang Xiaochu and the others to pass their heavenly tribulation and become half-sages. Then, they would enter the altar as soon as possible. There was no time to waste. The altar would close once the 3 million-plus demonic beasts' blood essence was burned. An hour later, Thousand Dance Cultivator was the first to complete her tribulation. She succeeded. He had successfully stepped onto the half-true saint's path, becoming a genuine first tribulation half-true saint. His body contained saintly might. At this moment, he was no longer a mortal. He had sublimated and transformed into a half-saint. His lifespan was 100 or 200 years longer than a mortal's. Next was Yang Yunqian. 2 hours later, all 14 of them had completed their tribulations. All of them had entered the first tribulation, half-true saint realm. Everyone's face was filled with excitement. After successfully crossing the heavenly tribulation and the holy tribulation at the same time, his overall strength was much stronger than other half-saints. I've succeeded. I'm a half-saint. First tribulation, half-true saint, haha. If that bastard Nangong Qianyu was still here, I would be able to crush him to death with one hand. The difference between a first tribulation half-true saint and a transcendence golden body in the heavenly realm is so huge. Now, in the Grand Xiao world, is there still a heavenly realm expert who can be my opponent? Yes, there is no heavenly realm expert who can be our opponent. Other than excitement, there was only excitement. It would be strange if they weren't excited after transforming from a mortal to a half-true saint. Feeling their strength, everyone was filled with pride. They were originally monstrous experts who stood at the peak of their realm. If they encountered other monstrous experts after reaching the half-true saint realm, as long as the other party hadn't reached the half-true saint realm, it was impossible for them to be their opponent. Captain, you didn't succeed? Captain didn't pass the tribulation. Captain is still in the heavenly realm. In their excitement, the third prince and the others looked at Lin Yi. Because Lin Yi was the only one who didn't speak. They were incomparably curious, but when they saw Lin Yi's cultivation, they couldn't help but be stunned. They were all half-true saints, but Lin Yi was still in the heavenly realm. This was a little illogical. Logically speaking, Lin Yi's chances of becoming a half-true saint were higher than theirs. However, they had all become half-true saints, but Lin Yi hadn't. I haven't reached the limit yet. I couldn't accept the divine tribulation, but I was bombarded by the heavenly tribulation. Lin Yi smiled and looked relaxed. He spoke of the reason why he hadn't become a half-true saint. However, he didn't elaborate, just saying that he hadn't reached the limit of the heavenly realm. I see. By the way, Zhou Baiyu, didn't you just say that no one in the heavenly realm can be your opponent? Captain is still in the heavenly realm. Do you want to try and let us see how much stronger you are after becoming a half-true saint? Xue Feng and the others suddenly understood. Suddenly, Xue Feng looked at Zhou Baiyu and said. After that, he couldn't help but laugh. The others were stunned, but when they came to their senses, they also laughed. Get lost. You seem to have said that too. Captain's strength can't be measured by realm. Zhou Baiyu couldn't wait to beat Xue Feng up. In the world of the Great Xia, there were indeed few heavenly beings who could be his opponent. However, before he said that, he didn't know that Lin Yi was still in the heavenly realm. If he had known that Lin Yi was still in the heavenly realm, he wouldn't have said that even if he was beaten to death. If he compared himself with Lin Yi, he would be courting death. Even if he had reached the half-true saint, he wasn't confident that he could fight with Lin Yi. We have 6 hours left. To be precise, we only have 5.5 hours left. The altar will close in 6 hours. Lin Yi waved his hand to stop Zhang Xiaochu and the others from talking. Because now, they couldn't afford to waste a single second. They had to come back from under the altar in 5.5 hours and then leave the altar. Otherwise, the altar would close, and those who entered would be suppressed under the altar forever. These demonic beasts will close after burning their blood essence? Then what are we waiting for? Hurry up and go in. We can't waste time. Captain, are we going in now? Captain, what's your plan? Hearing Lin Yi's words, they were all stunned and then became anxious. 5.5 hours was too short. It was really unexpected that they only had so little time to open the altar. I haven't been to this altar. Maybe it's random inside. We'll have to split up. I only have one thing to tell you. Calculate the time and come back out within 5.5 hours. Otherwise, I can't save you. At that time, you'll be suppressed under the altar forever. Even if you see a peerless treasure, don't miss the time if you don't have a certain degree of certainty. Even if you don't want the treasure, you have to come back. Your life is the most important thing. After Lin Yi finished speaking, his figure flashed. Then, he entered the altar and disappeared. The others also followed into the altar. In just a few breaths of time, Lin Yi and the others had all disappeared under the light of the altar. On the altar, besides the sound of Xueli, there was no other sound. Even the dense crowd of emperor-level demonic beasts around the altar became quiet. Chapter 301. On the altar, the power of blood was shocking. A magical light enveloped the altar. Lin Yi was the first to enter the altar. He was swept by the light and appeared in front of a passage. The passageway was 10 meters wide and 5 meters high. The entire passageway seemed to be made of a whole piece of jade. There was not a single gap. The jade emitted a mysterious aura. Even if it had been sealed since ancient times, there was not the slightest bit of moisture here. It was like a palace that had always been inhabited. In front of the passage there was a faint light. Alien race exterminate, demons exterminate, vampires exterminate. When Lin Yi looked at the light, a stern warning came from the light. It was like a heavenly law that was deeply rooted in people's hearts. The voice was filled with deep hatred. Hatred for the alien race, demons, and vampires. When Lin Yi heard it, his heart couldn't help but tremble. Whoosh 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 whoosh. At the same time, Zhang Xiaochu and the others also came to Lin Yi's side. When they heard the voice and the words that appeared in the light, they were all shocked and even had a trace of fear. Words from ancient times. This should be the civilization of the great Xia world. It should be the civilization of the heavenly purification territory from ancient times. I never understood why it survived and coexisted with the current civilization since ancient times. The Great Xia world is the secret of the heavenly purification territory. When I was young, I saw a secret scroll about the Zhou family's ancestor in the ancient books of the Zhou family. That was the secret of the Great Xia world and the heavenly purification territory. Because the ancestor knew this secret, a part of his memory was mysteriously erased, and he fell into madness. When he died, he remembered a little and recorded it. After I saw it, my eye of wisdom was disabled. That part of my memory was erased invisibly. Standing beside Lin Yi, Zhang Xiaochu and the others whispered. On the other hand, Zhou Baiyu's expression changed. His expression was a little numb. Seeing this, everyone turned to look at him. Zhou Baiyu pondered for a moment and recounted his experience. Originally, he was the #1 genius of the Zhou clan. He had the eyes of wisdom, and he had a photographic memory. He could see through things that ordinary people could not see. More importantly, he could learn any martial skill with a single glance. However, he accidentally saw the secret of Zhou family's ancestor. His eye of wisdom was crippled, that part of it disappeared. Could it be that we've touched upon the secrets of the Grand Xia? The expression on Lin Ye's face became serious. He turned around, but there was no path behind him. Looking up, there was no way out. The only thing they could do was to stay where they were or move forward. "Captain, what do we do now?" The third prince's expression was unsightly. Zhou Baiyu had only seen a little bit of his ancestor's secret before losing his memories. His eye of wisdom was also crippled. Furthermore, he had only seen a little bit of his ancestor's secret. This secret was only slightly related to the secrets of the Grand Xia. But now, they had come into contact with the secrets of the Grand Xia. Then, wouldn't the outcome be even worse? There's nowhere to retreat. Between us, who is the outsider, demons or the blood race? Withdraw. Lin Yi said seriously. Although he didn't fight against the outsider race, he had a grudge against the demons. As for the blood race, he wasn't sure. However, since the secrets of the Grand Xia were so hostile towards these three races, they must have a great hatred towards them. As a human, he would always remember the world that his ancestors had protected for his descendant. The bottom line of being a human was to not betray his own race. Brothers were brothers. However, if his brothers were the blood race or the demons, then he could only place righteousness before family. After speaking, he walked towards the light. He firmly believed that the ancestors of the human race wouldn't harm their descendant. At most, it was a test. Moreover, there was no way out now. If they stayed here for too long, the altar would close. Then, they would be suppressed here forever. Hiss 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 hiss. Lin Yi held his head high and walked into the light. Suddenly, there was a hissing sound in the light. Lin Yi only felt the light cleansing his blood. The blood in his body was cleansed by the light. He didn't stop but continued to walk forward. At the same time, Zhang Xiaochu and the others followed Lin Yi into the light. However, the moment they entered the light, all of them disappeared. Lin Yi suddenly understood what was going on. They must have been separated at random. If that wasn't the case, then it didn't mean that Zhang Xiaochu and the others were of the outsider race, the demons, or the blood race. The Tianyang Empire was very strict with the inspection of the races. It was impossible for the outsider race to infiltrate the human race. Of course, the outsider race affiliated to the human race wasn't affected. Descendants of the human race. Among all of you, your bloodline is the purest. I hope you can walk to the end. There may not be what you need here. What we can give you is a responsibility that ordinary people can't fulfill. If you die, don't blame anyone. If you survive, you will bear the responsibility that you should bear. At this moment, an ancient voice appeared in the light. The voice was ancient and heavy. There was no pressure, no threat. However, the moment the voice fell, a golden page floated over from the light. The page was empty. It was like a flying immortal that came to Lin Yi. Lin Ye's entire body was imprisoned. He could only watch helplessly as the golden page came crashing down on him. All life and death were annihilated. His soul trembled. His whole body was in pain as if it was going to vanish. The golden page integrated into his body, compatible with his bloodline, integrated with his entire body, and integrated with his consciousness. At this moment, Lin Yi was in between life and death. However, he couldn't do anything. The only thing he could do was to endure the pain and the integration of the golden page. He didn't know how long had passed. The pain disappeared. Lin Ye's mind was in a mess. After a while, he woke up. In his sea of consciousness, the golden page was spinning, emitting a mysterious aura. When he opened his eyes, he was surprised to find that he was on the altar. He didn't know how he got on the altar, nor did he know when he got there. Everything was filled with doubts. However, in his memories, the moment the pain disappeared, he heard a voice. Whether or not the Great Xia world can reappear in the world is no longer important. However, the sins that have buried the Great Xia world must be sent to the Nine Heavens Court. The Heavenly Book is the final lifeline of the Great Xia world. I hope that you will not disappoint me. Do not disappoint the people of the Great Xia world. Do not disappoint the humans. Go, that weak voice was faintly in Lin Ye's memories. This was the voice that he heard after the pain. The voice seemed to be talking to himself, but it also seemed to be talking to him. Furthermore, the voice was familiar. Because he had already heard this voice once when he entered the light. There were two voices, and they came from the same person. Chapter 302. Heavenly Book? What Heavenly Book? Who buried the Grand Xia world? Where is the Nine Heavens Court? Lin Yi muttered to himself. His mind was full of doubts. He didn't know any of this. Moreover, he didn't receive any hints. He could faintly sense that he had been caught up in the whirlpool of an enormous conspiracy. It was related to the secret of the Grand Xia that had sunk into the passage of time. The sinking of the Grand Xia was a conspiracy. Demons, blood race, other races couldn't escape from it. Whoosh whoosh, just as Lin Yi was in a daze, two sounds of something breaking through the air rang out. Xiao Yanqing and Lin Yang appeared at the bottom of the altar. They returned to the top of the altar with an excited expression on their faces. Seeing that Lin Yang and Lin Yang had returned, Lin Yi hurriedly put away his emotions. There was a faint smile on his face. He had come into contact with a monstrous secret. He couldn't let a third person know. How's the harvest? Lin Yi asked with a smile. Haha, I got a peerless 1,000 runes saint artifact and a saint-ranked martial skill. Lin Yang laughed loudly. This time, the harvest was not small. The main thing was that it was effortless to get the 1,000 runes saint artifact and saint-ranked martial skill. After he entered the Radiance, he was sent to an independent room where he obtained the 1,000 runes saint artifact and saint-ranked martial skill. When he wanted to go somewhere else, he was sent out. Look at mine. 10,000 runes saint artifact. Ha 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 ha, one of my treasures is better than two of yours. Are you jealous? Xiao Yanqing laughed out loud. A palm-sized bow appeared in her hand, but there were no arrows. However, it didn't affect the bow at all because it was a genuine 10,000 runes saint artifact. This bow was called the Mystic Kill Saint Bow. It didn't need to be seen. Instead, it used the owner's origin energy and domain as arrows. Within 100 miles, no arrow would miss. The power was earth-shattering. Even a ninth tribulation half-true saint would feel a chill in their heart if they were careless. You just got lucky. The smile on Lin Yang's face froze. He couldn't wait to beat Xiao Yanqing up. However, he quickly recovered his mood. After all, his two treasures weren't inferior to Xiao Yanqing's. What's more, how could such a thing be compared? Later, Zhang Xiaochu and the others returned to the altar one by one. In less than 15 minutes, all of them returned. Lin Yi carefully examined the blood essence and blood force on the altar. There was not much difference between the time they entered the altar. In other words, they hadn't been in there for long, less than 15 minutes. Entering the altar this time, everyone had gained a lot. There were also those who obtained Saint-tier martial skills. There were also those who obtained precious pills. Some had obtained powerful 10,000 inscriptions, sacred weapons. There were also some who obtained defensive treasures. There were also those who obtained holy array jade talismans. There were all kinds of treasures which made people very excited. Lin Yi smiled bitterly in his heart. He didn't obtain any treasures, but instead, he received troubles and responsibilities. Furthermore, he had to lie and say that he obtained a saint-tier martial skill. But he couldn't say it out loud. Just thinking about it made him feel depressed and speechless. What was going on? This trip, other than the heaven list points and honor points, he basically had nothing. The team members with him not only obtained heaven list points and honor points, but also became half-true saints and obtained treasures. He was the only one who had nothing. No one would believe him if he told them. "Captain, should we return to Tiny Spirit City or fight?" the third prince asked. Now that his cultivation had reached the first tribulation half-true saint realm, his strength was even more terrifying. If he fought, the power he displayed was more than 100 times stronger than when he was a heavenly being. Kill. Lin Yi opened his mouth and only said one word. His entire depression was vented at this moment. After saying that, his figure flashed, and he charged towards the dense crowd of demonic beasts. The green darkness glaze also appeared at this moment. Suddenly, a shocking power erupted, and waves of demonic beasts roared continuously. Demonic beasts fell one after another. Lin Yi no longer restrained himself like before, and he continued to crush his powerful attacks. On the altar, the third prince and the others were shocked when they saw Lin Yi's actions. Because they had followed Lin Yi for a period of time, they had a rough understanding of Lin Yi's character. They did not expect Lin Yi to be so crazy today. He had entered a frenzied killing mode. However, they did not think too much about it. They thought that Lin Yi wanted to obtain more heaven list points this month. Then, they would return to Tiny Spirit City. Thinking of this, Zhang Xiaochu and the others also joined the battle. As half-true saints, their strength had increased sharply. They no longer needed to team up to face the third and fourth tribulation Emperor demonic beasts. Instead, it was a one-on-one battle. On the first day, Lin Yi obtained 100,000 heaven list points. On the second day, Lin Yi obtained 70,000 heaven list points. On the third day, Lin Yi obtained 80,000 heaven list points. Although the others were half-true saints, their strength was still a notch lower than Lin Yi. Moreover, Lin Yi had the help of the Azure Netherworld Glaze. One Azure Netherworld Glaze was equivalent to more than a dozen second tribulation half-true saints. The heavenly list points they obtained every day was about 30 to 40,000. Time passed day by day. 26 days had passed this month. On the 26th day, Lin Ye's heaven list points had reached 29 million. In this month, other than Lin Yi, Qian Wexiu was no longer the one with the highest heaven list points. Zhang Xiaochu had the highest heaven list points with 101 million, and Wang Zhe had the lowest heaven list points with 690,000. Let's return, Lin Yi said. He had already vented his depression and speechlessness. After going through crazy battles, his strength had become stronger. Counting the time, 26 days had passed, and it was time to return. Otherwise, they would not be able to rush back to Tiny Spirit City on the last day of the month, because everyone was going to challenge the Tiny Spirit Tower. Otherwise, it would really be a waste of heaven list points. With such high heaven list points, if they succeeded in challenging the Tiny Spirit Tower, they would have even more heaven list points in addition to the amplitude value. It was much more cost-effective than fighting and hunting beasts. All right, it's time to go back, Zhang Xiaochu said with a smile. The others nodded in agreement as they all wanted to challenge the Tiny Spirit Tower. Subsequently, Lin Yi summoned them into the ninefold space and used the invisibility talisman to quickly pass through the sea of beasts. When he reached a safe area, he called Zhang Xiaochu and the rest out. After 3 days of flying, they finally rushed back to Tiny Spirit City. Looking at Tiny Spirit City, everyone felt a sense of homecoming. They had left more than 3 months ago. They only returned today after more than 3 months, which made them feel emotional. However, in these 3 months, their harvest was terrifying, and their efforts and struggles were not in vain. Lin Yi and the rest. I finally see the main characters. What a powerful aura! They have all reached the Sage-to-be level. They are all in the top 50 of the World Heaven list. It seems that they are going to challenge the Tiny Spirit Tower this time and aim for a higher Heaven list ranking. I'm really looking forward to it, although I'm not on the World Heaven list. The appearance of Lin Yi and the rest shocked countless experts in Tiny Spirit City. Most of them were curious and envious. Chapter 303. Lin Yi and the rest entered Tiny Spirit City in a serious manner. Everyone knew that the other party must be overjoyed. That was normal. Those who entered the ancient ruins of Grand Xia were all supreme demon-level geniuses. But for these demon-level geniuses, they were definitely at the bottom. In the eyes of these demon-level geniuses, they had no way to stand on the same level as them. In front of them, they were all high and mighty. But now, their achievements had far surpassed those geniuses. After entering Tiny Spirit City, everyone agreed to head to Tiny Spirit Tower in the afternoon. Now, they returned to their own castles to rest. After more than 3 months of continuous battles, they could finally rest in peace. As for Lin Yi, after a short rest, he walked towards Treasure Sky Pagoda. Treasure Sky Pagoda. It looked the same as Tower of Time and Tiny Spirit Tower. To enter Treasure Sky Pagoda, each level required a different heaven leaderboard value. The first level required 1 point. The second level required 10 points. The third level required 100 points. The fourth level required 1,000 points. The fifth level required 10,000 points. The sixth level could only be entered by the top 1,000 of the heaven leaderboard. It was free once a month. The seventh level could only be entered by the top 100 of the heaven leaderboard. It was free once a month. The eighth level could only be entered by the top 50 of the heaven leaderboard. It was free once a year. As for the ninth level, only the top 10 honor points could enter. It could only be entered once a year. Lin Yi bowed to the guardian of Treasure Sky Pagoda. Lord Guardian, I would like to enter the 5th level. Lin Yi skipped the first 4 levels and wanted to go to the 5th level. In his opinion, the treasures on the first 4 levels were useless to him. Only the 5th level could catch his eye. In fact, he wanted to go to the 7th level directly to see 9 Cauldrons God Suppression. Junior, the rules don't allow you to skip 7 levels directly. Let's start from the first level. The Guardian glanced at Lin Yi. His expression was as calm as an ancient well, unchanging for all eternity. I understand. Lin Yi didn't dare to refute. He could only start from the first level. After entering the Heavenly Treasure Pagoda, Lin Yi was completely dumbfounded. He now understood that he had been thinking too much. The treasures on the first floor were much better than he had imagined. 1,000-pattern saint weapons, top-grade spirit pills, and all sorts of heavenly treasures. Every single one of them was in existence that the powerhouses of the heavenly purification territory would fight over if they were taken out. However, it was very common here. Low-grade 1,000 inscriptions saint weapon, 10,000 high-grade 1,000 inscriptions saint weapon, 100,000, supreme grade 1,000 inscriptions saint weapon, 300,000, supreme grade 1,000 inscriptions saint weapon, 100,000. Every treasure had a corresponding price. Lin Yi was shocked when he saw the prices. In the auction house, a supreme grade 1,000 inscriptions sacred weapon would cost more than 10 billion spiritual stones, but here, only 300,000 heaven list points would be enough. 1,000 pattern saint weapons were extremely precious outside. However, they could be seen everywhere here. There were over 1,000,000 treasures on the first floor. Lin Yi looked through them, but there was nothing he needed. Following this, Zhao Fu entered the second level through a teleportation gate. The treasures on the second level were much better than those on the first level, but there were fewer of them. The third floor, the fourth floor. Finally, Lin Yi came to the fifth floor. It would be a lie if he said he wasn't interested in the first few floors. Even if it was the first floor's treasure, he still needed it. It was just that it wasn't that urgent. Even if he didn't need it, Solitary Spirit and Luo Bingyue did. However, he had to save his heaven list points for now and choose something he needed. The fifth floor, there were only 10,000 treasures. However, every one of them was a 10,000 pattern saint weapon, and every one of them was a supreme grade. However, a 10,000 pattern saint weapon required 10 million heaven list points. A complete set of 10,000 pattern saint weapons required 30 million heaven list points. Lin Yi also found that there were divine elixirs here, supreme grade divine elixirs. Each supreme grade divine elixir required 1 million heaven list points. After looking at the fifth floor, Lin Yi sighed. He seemed to have a lot of heaven list points, but when he really used them, he realized that they were too little. The sixth floor, they were all 10,000 pattern saint weapons. Moreover, they were all rare treasures. The more treasures he saw, the more Lin Yi sighed. He decided to work hard to earn heaven list points and exchange them for powerful equipment. He also wanted to buy some for Luo Xing, and the rest. The seventh floor. This was where Lin Yi wanted to go. There were only 1,000 items on the seventh floor. Saint-level cultivation techniques, saint-level arrays, saint-level talismans. Every one of them was beyond imagination. However, the prices made Lin Yi gasp. Even he could not afford the items here. Even if he could, it would only be a one-time use item. The real treasures were too expensive. Supreme Artifact, Ming Di Blood Slash. Price, 100 million heaven list point. Supreme Sacred Armor, Raging Flames. Price, 100 million heaven list point. Supreme Artifact, Light of the Milky Way. Price, 100 million heaven list point. Supreme Artifact, Crack of the Glacier. Price, 100 million heaven list points. Supreme Grade Saint Weapon, Sea of Flames. Price, 100 million heaven list point. Lin Yi was stunned. Supreme artifacts, all of them were supreme artifact. Moreover, they were all priced at 100 million heaven list point. Even for him, it was an astronomical figure. For other monstrous experts, it was something they could only look up to. 100 million heaven list points, let alone 3 years. Even if they were given 30 or 300 years, they would not be able to earn 100 million heaven list point. Wasn't this a little too expensive? However, Lin Yi thought that it was normal. This was just a reward for the truly monstrous expert. It was equivalent to giving it away for free. The prerequisite was that one had to be monstrous enough. After searching for a while, he finally found the 9 cauldrons god suppression. What puzzled Lin Yi was that the 9 cauldrons god suppression should only be on the 1st and 2nd floors. Why was it on the 7th floor? I see. Lin Yi was enlightened. One only needed a small amount of heaven list points to enter the 1st and 2nd floors. However, only the top 100 on the heaven list could enter the 7th floor. Needless to say, the 9 cauldrons god suppression was equivalent to giving it to the top 100 experts for free. To be qualified to enter the 7th floor, one had to be in the top 100 on the heaven list. 500,000 heaven ranking points was nothing to the top 100 of the world's heaven ranking. Sacred level martial skill, 9 cauldrons god suppression, first 3 floors, price 500,000 heaven list point. Lin Yi picked up the jade slip that recorded the 9 cauldrons god suppression. After looking at it carefully, he realized that 500,000 heaven list points was only for the first 3 floors. In other words, the 9 cauldrons god suppression was divided into many floors. On the 7th floor of the treasure pagoda, only the first 3 floors of the 9 cauldrons god suppression were available. As for the 9 cauldrons god suppression, he had no idea where it was. Could it be on the 8th and 9th floors? Lin Yi muttered to himself. He was currently on the 7th floor of the treasure pagoda. Above him were the 8th and 9th floors. Perhaps the 9 cauldrons god suppression was on these 2 floors. However, it was not the time to enter the 8th and 9th floors. It was only available once a year. Obviously, the 8th and 9th floors were not open yet. He pondered for a moment. Lin Yi used 500,000 heaven list points to purchase the first 3 floors of the 9 cauldrons god suppression. Chapter 304. In the 5th month of the Grand Xia World Ruins. Another month had arrived. Countless experts who had gone out to explore the Grand Xia World returned. Every month, the tiny spirit tower would be the busiest place in the Grand Xia World. Zhang Xiaochu and the others had already arrived to challenge the tiny spirit tower. All of them were first tribulation half-true saint. Even though their opponents were stronger than them, they were much stronger than them when they were in the heavenly realm. After an hour of challenging the tiny spirit tower, the 14 of them finally came to an end. None of them had expected that the person who had challenged the tiny spirit tower this time would be Wang Zhe, who had the lowest points on the heavenly ranking. Wang Zhe's level in the tiny spirit tower was 7. In other words, his amplitude was 1. 7. Other than Wang Zhe's 1. 7 amplitude, the others' amplitudes were only 1. 3 and 1. 4. Then again, this was already heaven-defying. On top of the heavenly rankings foundation, adding the amplitude, their rankings would rise by another level. I feel that 4 of us will be able to enter the top 10. Xiaochu, Wu Xiu, Xuefeng, and Tianyu. Wang Zhe is definitely in the top 20. His amplitude has a huge advantage. Top 20, we should all be able to enter the top 20. Below the tiny spirit tower, more than a dozen monstrous experts were discussing. The other experts were standing far away from them, and none of them dared to provoke them. They were the strongest experts on the heavenly ranking. Moreover, they were a small team. In the Grand Xia world, no one was their opponent. However, they did not see Lin Yi. Captain. Captain. Right at this time, Lin Yi appeared in Zhang Xiaochu and the others' line of sight. In an instant, the 14 of them greeted Lin Yi. Their tone was respectful, and they worshipped him from the bottom of their hearts. Even though they were first tribulation half-true saints, in their hearts, Lin Yi was the strongest and most monstrous genius. Even if they had reached the half-true saint realm, they were still no match for Lin Yi. Have you guys challenged the tiny spirit tower? Lin Yi asked as he approached Zhang Xiaochu and the others. Captain, we've challenged it. Amplitude 1. For, how was it? Zhang Xiaochu spoke, and a proud expression appeared on his face. This was only his second time challenging the tiny spirit tower, passing 3 floors in a row. Not bad. Lin Yi patted Zhang Xiaochu's shoulder and said, with an amplitude of 1. For, coupled with his basic heaven ranking, Zhang Xiaochu would definitely be in the top 10. When Zhang Xiaochu heard Lin Ye's praise, he couldn't help but feel excited. To be praised by Lin Yi was enough to satisfy him. One had to know that in Lin Ye's eyes, many of the peak monstrous geniuses in the Great Xiao World ruins were trash. The top 10 monstrous geniuses of the Tianyang Empire couldn't even withstand a single blow from Lin Yi. Countless experts on the square of the tiny spirit tower sighed when they saw this scene. A celestial patted the half-step sage's shoulder like an elder patting a junior. Moreover, this half-step sage didn't get angry. Instead, he seemed very happy. "Captain, I wish you all the best." Shui Feng and the others opened up a path for him. They allowed Lin Yi to enter the tiny spirit tower. When other experts saw that Lin Yi was going to challenge the tiny spirit tower, they also opened up a path for him. Most of them were curious as to whether Lin Yi would be able to break through again. Even though there were several forces in the Great Xiao World ruins, there were many of them. However, there weren't many who had hatred for Lin Yi. At most, they were envious of him. There were only a few people who truly hated Lin Yi. Even so, they were extremely wary of Lin Yi. In the past, Lin Yi had passed the 14th floor of the tiny spirit tower and lost on the 15th floor. If he continued to challenge the tiny spirit tower, he would directly head to the 15th floor. Whoosh! With a soft sound, Lin Yi appeared on the 15th floor of the tiny spirit tower. On the 15th floor, there were 4 fourth tribulation half-true saints. Azura hell. Lin Yi didn't plan to stay on the 15th floor for long. The moment he stepped onto the 15th floor, he executed the Azura hell. In an instant, the 4 fourth tribulation half-true saints were engulfed by his overwhelming might. Without even looking, Lin Yi already knew the result. The result was 4 fourth tribulation half-true saints falling. He had successfully passed the 15th floor of the tiny spirit tower. Lin Yi, 15th floor, pass. Outside the tiny spirit tower, countless experts discovered that Lin Yi had passed the 15th floor as soon as he entered the tiny spirit tower. They couldn't help but be shocked, and their expressions constantly changed. The 15th floor was terrifying. Looking at Lin Ye's speed, it was a one-shot. In an instant, everyone was shocked, and a new evaluation of Lin Ye's strength appeared in their hearts. After passing the 15th floor, Lin Yi was swept up by a ray of light, and he entered the 16th floor. On the 16th floor, Lin Yi faced 5 experts. They were 5 fifth tribulation half-true saints. He understood that he couldn't hesitate in the slightest when fighting against these experts. He had to kill them as quickly as he could. The more he killed, the better. Otherwise, it would be over if he gave them a chance to surround him. Moreover, he couldn't give them a chance to react. It was the same Azura hell. But this time, only 3 fifth tribulation half-true saints fell, and 2 fifth tribulation half-true saints were injured. However, their battle prowess wasn't affected at all. Chapter 305. On the 17th floor of the tiny spirit tower. Yellow sand filled the air, making it hard for anyone to open their eyes. Lin Yi hovered in midair. 6 sixth tribulation half-true saints surrounded him. 6th tribulation half-true saints were the strongest half-true saints he had encountered so far. Even in the dark forest, he had only fought with 5th tribulation Emperor Realm demonic beasts. He had never encountered a 6th tribulation Emperor Realm demonic beast. Right now, there were 6 of them. 6 sixth tribulation half-true saints had been waiting for him for a long time, and they surrounded him. They had no intention of fighting him alone. It's worth it for the heavens list. That's the only way. Lin Yi muttered to himself. Although he appeared calm and composed, his divine sense circulated in his sea of consciousness. A folding fan appeared in his hand as he fanned himself. He looked like a young master from an aristocratic family. Fury of lightning. Lin Yi bellowed as he waved the heavens will fan in his hand. In an instant, lightning fell from the sky, and everything within 100 miles was filled with destructive lightning. The might of lightning was enough to destroy heaven and earth. In an instant, the sixth tribulation half-true saints were enveloped by the might of lightning. Seeing Lin Ye's fury of lightning, the sixth tribulation half-true saints revealed a look of shock. They had never imagined that Lin Yi would be so terrifying. It had exceeded their expectations. This was the fury of lightning. This was something Lin Yi had comprehended from the heavens will fan. The lightning attribute was extremely destructive. With his divine sense at the peak of the 52nd order, this attack was comparable to an 8th tribulation half-true saint's full-force attack. Moreover, his voice contained the sound of divine sense attacking one's soul. The sound of soul directly attacked the sixth tribulation half-true saint's sea of consciousness. Ah! Miserable screams rang through the air. This was the sound of soul strangling them, and their sea of consciousness couldn't withstand the pain. Piercing pain pierced through their sea of consciousness, and they lost consciousness for a moment. During this short moment, the fury of lightning descended, and it engulfed the sixth tribulation half-true saints. The fury of lightning continued to descend, and destructive lightning bolts fell from the sky. After this attack, Lin Ye's body swayed. The heavens will fan was indeed heaven-defying. However, the consumption was also very terrifying. Just one attack was enough to make a peak rank 52 divine spiritual sorcerer like him unable to bear it. Even if he went all out now, he could only use the divine will fan once more. Skyheart Pierce. 5/6 tribulation half-true saints had died under Huang Xiaolong's wrath and soul voice. As for the remaining 6th tribulation half-true saint, Lin Yi didn't make a move. Instead, he circulated his divine sense and executed the heavenly heart pierce. The formless divine sense attack shattered the 6th tribulation half-true saint's sea of consciousness. On the 17th floor, all 6th tribulation half-true saints had fallen. Lin Yi, 17th floor, pass. Countless experts in the plaza of the tiny spirit tower were shocked, and the sounds of discussion were everywhere. This is too terrifying. He passed the 17th floor so quickly. Simply invincible. How did he do it? His amplitude is 2.7. I'm so envious. He can't have passed the 18th level, right? On the square, there were hundreds and thousands of monstrous experts. Some were native, some were from the 2 empires, and some were from the 8 alien races. They were all staring at the crystal steel in astonishment. Most of them were envious. It would be great if they were as strong as Huang Xiaolong. However, reality was reality. In reality, they were no match for Lin Yi. While the crowd was wondering if Lin Yi had passed the 18th floor, the crystal steel emitted a blinding light, and a notification sounded, indicating that Lin Yi had passed the 18th floor. With that, all the powerful beings present went even crazier. But it didn't take long for Lin Ye's figure to appear in everyone's line of sight. He, who had passed the 18th floor, had failed on the 19th floor. Outsiders didn't know. The 16th floor, 17th floor, and 18th floor didn't depend on his martial strength. Instead, he relied on his divine sense. At the peak of the 52nd order, his strength was comparable to an 8th tribulation half-true saint. If his divine sense reached the 55th order, it would mean that his divine sense had reached the Tao. This was because a divine sense expert at the 55th order was equivalent to a divine sense saint, just like a martial saint. However, a divine sense saint was much more powerful and mysterious than a martial saint. Most of the time, a divine sense saint was invincible in the same realm. Not to mention invincible in the same realm, A divine sense saint was invincible in the same realm as a divine sense master. Even if one's divine sense was comparable to an 8th tribulation half-true saint. But against 8 8th tribulation half-true saints, he couldn't withstand a single blow. He had killed 2 of them, but he had also been killed. In the end, he failed on the 19th floor. "Captain, you're awesome." 18th floor of the tiny spirit tower, sweeping through everything. With an amplitude of 2.8, no one in the world's heaven list can surpass him. Seeing Lin Yi come out, Zhang Xiaochu and the others were incomparably excited. They swarmed over and surrounded Lin Yi. Under the envious and worshipful gazes, the group left the tiny spirit tower's square. It was the last 2 hours of the night and also the last day of the month. Countless experts gathered in front of the world's heaven list. Looking at the changes on the heaven list, everyone's heartbeat quickened. However, everyone was clear that the world's heaven list's number 1, Lin Yi, was unshakable. At the very least, no one could shake him this month. Not even Nangong Xie. Soon, the world's heaven list's ranking was settled. First place, Lin Yi, amplitude of 2.8, heaven list score of 6410,000 point. Second place, Nangong Xie, amplitude of 2.5, heaven list score of 4570,000 point. Third place, Ruolanyu, amplitude of 2.0, heaven list score of 2970,000 point. Fourth place, Mu Zhili, amplitude of 1.8, heaven list score of 21700,000 point. Fifth place, Zhang Xiaochu, amplitude of 1.4, heaven list score of 1480,000 point. Sixth place, Qian Wuxiu, amplitude of 1.4, heaven list score of 141,000 point. Seventh place, Xuefeng, amplitude of 1.5, heaven list score of 136,000 point. Eighth place, Lai Tenyu, amplitude of 1.4, heaven list score of 133,000 points. The world's top 1,000 heaven list names were imprinted in every expert's eyes. The most shocking thing was Lin Ye's heaven list score. It had reached 6.41 million, 2 million more than Nangong Xie. Other than the shock brought by Lin Yi, the members under him were also shocking. That was because 4 of the top 10 in the world's heaven list were his people. Including him, half of the world's heaven list was his team. The people in his team, combined with the heaven list score of the top 10, accounted for more than half. The other members were also in the top 20. For a moment, Lin Ye's team became the hottest topic in the Great Xiao World ruins once again. Even captains like Tian Yi, Ming Yang, and Shen Yu could only sigh in envy. Ming Yang and Gongsun Yu had grudges with Lin Yi. They hated Lin Yi to the bone, but they didn't dare to face Lin Yi. They were worried that Lin Yi would kill them. That was because Lin Yi was too strong. He was so strong that his team could sweep the world's heaven list. Countless experts were gathered in front of the world's heaven list. Lin Yi and the others were all gathered in the third prince's castle to celebrate. Fruit wine, spirit fruits, and snacks. Everyone was enjoying the fruit wine while watching the world's heaven list through the world spirit. In a small castle, more than half of the top 20 were occupied. Chapter 306. After discussion, Lin Yi asked Zhang Xiaochu and the others to continue hunting monsters to earn points on the heaven list, to maintain their rankings on the heaven list. In this way they could gain more honor points. As for him, he would not go to the dark forest with them for the time being. This was because he was going to cultivate in the Tower of Time and strive to refine and integrate all the other blood of the great sage. Only in this way could he better comprehend other domains and break through to the semi-sage realm. However, he also said that he would not fight with them for the first half of the month. But in the second half of the month, he would go to the depths of the dark forest with them and hunt monsters crazily. He believed in the strength of Zhang Xiaochu and the others. As long as they were careful, no one in the world of Great Xia could threaten them. After all, they were all semi-sages. On the first day of the second month, Zhang Xiaochu and the others left Tiny Sprite City early in the morning. They went to the dark forest to hunt monsters. Lin Yi walked towards the Tower of Time. The first place on the heaven list had the opportunity to cultivate on the fourth floor of the Tower of Time for free. Lin Yi did not care how much time he was rewarded. Anyway, he decided to cultivate on the fourth floor of the Tower of Time for 10 days every month. Consuming the heaven list points was just a drop in the ocean for him. He came to the Tower of Time. Lin Yi greeted the guardian and then entered the fourth floor. After entering the fourth floor, Lin Yi directly entered the ninefold space and began to cultivate. This time, he was not cultivating his domain, cultivation realm, martial skills, or divine thoughts. Instead, he was refining the blood of the great sage and then cultivating his domain. The blood of the great sage of the gold element has been integrated. Now, it should be integrated with the blood of the great sage of the wood element. Lin Yi muttered to himself. One day later, he sat cross-legged with a calm mind. With a move of his divine thoughts, a jade bottle appeared in front of him. The jade bottle was opened. An unparalleled holy aura was emitted. The source of the holy aura was that drop of crystal-clear blood of the great sage. The holy aura of the great sage of the wood element almost overwhelmed Lin Yi. The holy aura of the blood of the great sage was not the holy aura of an ordinary sage. The difference between the two was like heaven and earth. Lin Yi carefully touched the wood-type great sage's blood. With the experience of fusing with the metal-type great sage's blood, Lin Yi wasn't completely calm, but he wasn't flustered either. He began the sacrificial refining in an orderly manner. 1 day, 2 days. On the 4th day, the wood-type great sage's blood fused. After fusing with the wood element great sage's blood, Lin Yi had 18 wood domains. Now that he had the wood territory, Lin Yi did not hesitate. He mysteriously appeared under the chaotic divine tree and began to cultivate the wood territory, improving it. 1 year, 2 years, 7 years passed. Lin Yi wholeheartedly cultivated the wood domain. Finally, his wood domain reached 10,000 Tao points. The 10,000 wood elemental domain had strengthened his life force and enhanced his self-healing body. This was something that he had never expected. Originally, he only wanted to reach the half-saint realm with the 5 elements great perfection. He didn't expect that the wood territory would make his self-healing body more magical. After the wood territory reached 10,000, Lin Yi began to sacrificial refine and fuse with the water-type great sage's blood. With the metal-type and wood-type, it was easier to fuse with the water-type. 14 years passed. The water-type domain reached 10,000. He didn't find any benefits with the water-type domain for the time being. The only strong point was that he could use the water-type domain to launch a terrifying attack. On this day, Lin Yi heard the prompt in the ninefold space. It meant that the 10 days were up. When he entered the Tower of Time, he had already agreed that he would be reminded when the 10 days were up. 14 years in the ninefold space was only 10 days in the outside world. He stood up, and his figure strangely disappeared, as if he had evaporated. When he reappeared, he had already returned to the Tower of Time. He then left the Tower of Time, bowed to the guardian, and left the square of the Tower of Time. He didn't return to the castle. Instead, he walked out of Tiny Spirit City. In the past 10 days, he didn't kill a single monster this month. He didn't have a single point on the heaven list. His name wasn't on the world heaven list. Looking at the world heaven list, Lin Yi revealed a smile. His figure flashed and disappeared. He passed by the yellow sand and flew towards the dark forest. He had the power of space and the wings of space. His speed was extremely fast. Although it wasn't as fast as teleportation, it wasn't far off. Flying at full speed, Lin Yi found Zhang Xiaochu and the others 10,000 miles away from the dark forest in a day. Captain, you're here. There are too few demonic beasts in the periphery. We don't dare to go deeper. It's so frustrating. Seeing Lin Ye's arrival, Xue Feng was extremely excited. The others were the same. They were all First Tribulation half-true saints now. Moreover, they had obtained Peerless 1,000 Runes Saint artifacts or 10,000 Runes Saint artifacts under the altar, as well as some targeted treasures. This made their strength even more terrifying. As First Tribulation half-true saints, they could easily kill a Fourth Tribulation half-true saint. If they encountered a Fifth Tribulation half-true saint, they could only run away. However, this was the reason why they felt so frustrated. Because there weren't enough Emperor Realm demonic beasts to kill in the periphery, it was hard for them to climb up the heaven list. In the depths of the altar there were countless demonic beasts. However, they didn't dare to go there. Not to mention half-true saints, even true saints didn't dare to set foot in that place. Ants could bite an elephant to death. Then let's hurry. Let's fight at the altar. Lin Yi smiled and said. As soon as his voice fell, his figure disappeared into the boundless forest. Seeing Lin Ye's speed, they couldn't help but be stunned. By the time they reacted, they were already flying with all their might. They arrived at a place 200 miles away from the altar. Everyone used invisibility talismans and moved silently. With their powerful cultivations, after using the invisibility talisman, they smoothly passed through the dense crowd of demonic beasts and entered the altar. The altar was as quiet as ever. Other than the traces of demonic beast blood essence on it, there was nothing else. The battle had begun. They had wasted the first 11 days, and they wanted to use the last 10 days to climb up the heaven list. When the battle started, it was a crazy slaughter. Lin Yi was the same. With the addition of the green netherworld glaze, his heaven list value soared crazily. 17 days of non-stop fighting. Lin Ye's heaven list value reached 2.01 million. Qianwu's heaven list value reached 940,000. The others' heaven list value was around 800,000. This month's heaven list value was much lower than the previous month. The main reason was that they had wasted the first 11 days. Otherwise, with their strength, their heaven list value would definitely be higher than the previous month. Lin Ye's heaven list value was 200,000 points lower than the previous month, but it didn't affect his ranking. This month, at the end of the month, the world's heaven list, Lin Yi was still in first place, and his heaven list value was 6 million. Zhang Xiaochu and the others' rankings dropped a little. Chapter 307. Lin Yang, Xiaochu, you guys. Go to the 5th floor of the treasure pagoda now. Buy the holy array of heaven and earth and cultivate it. By then, you won't have to hunt monsters alone. As long as the holy array is activated, monsters will fall in droves. It will be much better than now. In the 3rd prince's castle, Lin Yi said, let them cultivate the holy array of heaven and earth. The power of the holy array of heaven and earth was terrifying, but the consumption was also great. Of course, the speed of killing monsters was even more terrifying. I did think about it, but the holy array of heaven and earth is not so easy to cultivate. Lin Yang said. They had naturally been to the 5th floor of the treasure pagoda and seen the holy array of heaven and earth. It was a high-grade holy array. It was extremely difficult to cultivate. Even if they were half-saints now, they wouldn't be able to touch the surface without a year or two, let alone successfully cultivate it. I've cultivated it. It's not as difficult as you think. Moreover, you don't have to succeed in cultivating it. You just have to grasp it a little. As long as you can grasp it, you can use 1/3 of the power of the holy array to kill monsters. In the process, you can quickly cultivate the holy array through the evolution of the holy array. Lin Yi said. It would definitely take a long time for a half-saint to cultivate the holy array. Often, a half-saint wouldn't be able to cultivate the holy array in their lifetime. Even monstrous experts couldn't do it. However, mastering a little was naturally not a problem. As long as they could master a little, they could rely on the defense of the altar to kill monsters without restraint. It was countless times better than fighting alone. It's really worth a try. Shuefeng was excited when he heard Lin Ye's words. If they could really rely on the power of the holy array to kill monsters, their heaven list value would soar. Also, you can go directly to the altar. Just be careful. Don't be impulsive. Lin Yi instructed. In the treasure pagoda, there was an invisibility talisman that was even more precious than the invisibility talisman. Although it was expensive, they could afford it. 10,000 heaven list value was just a drop in the ocean for them. That's for sure. If those demonic beasts find out, even a saint would be in trouble. Captain, what about you? Third Prince asked Lin Yi. He didn't know what Lin Yi had planned. If it wasn't for Lin Yi, it would feel like something was missing. I'm still the same as last month. After cultivating in the Tower of Time for 3 months, I should be able to face the holy tribulation and promote to a semi-sage level knight. Before that, I could only try my best to rank 3 on the heavenly rankings. Lin Yi said. Now, he had already fused with 3 drops of the great sage's blood. As long as he fused the blood of the great sage with the blood of the earth great sage, he might be able to break through to the semi-sage realm. As for time, space, death, and life, they weren't something he could touch at the moment. I'm looking forward to the day when Captain becomes a half-saint. Captain is a half-saint. I dare say that Captain can directly charge into the altar from the outside. Xiao Yanqing smiled and said. Everyone was looking forward to Lin Yi becoming a half-saint. They were all curious about how powerful Lin Yi would become after reaching the semi-sage realm. You guys hurry up and fight. In half a year, the 9th floor of the Heavenly Treasure Pagoda will be opened. There's also a top-level secret realm that will open. Lin Yi said seriously. It was urgent to reach the semi-sage realm. He had to reach the semi-sage realm as soon as possible, at least before the top-level secret realm opened. The 9th floor of the Heavenly Treasure Pagoda was also worth looking forward to. However, he had to prepare more points on the heavenly rankings. I almost forgot. If I miss this opportunity, I will be left far behind by others. Captain, do you have anything else to say? Otherwise, I'll go to the Heavenly Treasure Pagoda to buy the holy formation of heaven and earth. Hearing Lin Ye's words, Yang Yunqian and the others couldn't help but be stunned. They couldn't wait to slap themselves hard. How could they forget such an important thing? They really admired themselves. Suddenly, they couldn't wait to leave immediately to buy the cultivation method of the holy formation of heaven and earth, and then hunt demon beasts to earn points on the heavenly rankings and honor points. Go ahead. Lin Yi waved his hand. Then, he left the castle of the third prince. The others went to the Heavenly Treasure Pagoda, and he went to the Tower of Time. It was also 10 days. After Lin Yi entered the 4th floor of the Tower of Time, he entered the ninefold space to sacrifice and fuse the blood of the Great Sage of Fire and the blood of the Great Sage of Earth. 14 years passed in the ninefold space. 10 days passed in the outside world. What Lin Yi didn't expect was, in the first 7 years, not only did he fuse with the blood of the Great Sage of Fire, but his fire domain also reached 10,000. However, in the following 7 years, he couldn't fuse with the blood of the Great Sage of Earth. This puzzled him. However, Biluo was still in a deep sleep. Otherwise, he could ask Biluo. If he couldn't fuse with the blood of the Great Sage of Earth, the 5 elements couldn't be perfected. If the 5 elements couldn't be perfected, he naturally couldn't face the divine tribulation and break through to the semi-sage realm. For a time, he felt depressed and puzzled. He could only hunt demon beasts crazily and wait for Biluo to wake up to ask Biluo. Time passed day by day. Month after month passed. Unknowingly, It had been nearly a year since the Great Xiao World ruins opened. Lin Yi controlled the heaven and earth holy array. With the addition of the dark glaze, he was number 1 on the world's heaven list for 10 months in a row. Moreover, his heaven list value for this year's heaven list had reached 14 million. His total heaven list value had reached 83 million. What puzzled him and made him curious was that his peerlessly beautiful senior sister, Nangong Xie, was closely behind him in terms of amplitude and heaven list value. This made him feel a sense of oppression. Lin Yi was number 1 in amplitude, and Nangong Xie was number 2. Lin Yi was number 1 on the world's heaven list, and Nangong Xie was number 2. Lin Yi was number 1 on the heaven list, and Nangong Xie was number 2. Other than him, 8 of the top 10 on the world's heaven list were his people. Mu Zhili, who was originally number 3, could only be ranked 10th. Among the top 10, only Nangong Xie and Ruo Lanyu weren't Lin Ye's people. Among the top 20, only a few were monstrous experts from other forces. On this day, the 8th and 9th floors of the Heavenly Treasure Pagoda were opened. Only the top 50 monstrous experts on the world's heaven list could enter the 8th floor. Only the top 10 honor points could enter the 9th floor. "Captain, do you want to go to the 9th or 8th floor first?" Zhuge Ling's crisp and sweet voice sounded. "Let's go to the 8th floor. We can't afford the treasures on the 8th floor. But it's not bad to look around. At least it's motivating." Lin Yi smiled. What a joke. Not many people could afford the treasures on the 5th and 6th floors of the Heavenly Treasure Pagoda, let alone the 7th and 8th floors. The treasures on the 7th and 8th floors were enough to look around. As for buying them, it was better not to dream about it. The treasures on the 7th floor, except for the 9 cauldrons suppressing gods. The others all cost 100 million heaven list value. Even Lin Yi couldn't afford it, let alone others. However, if Lin Yi was given time, he could buy 2 supreme sacred artifacts in a year. As for the 8th floor, he was just curious. He didn't know what precious treasures there were. It couldn't be a divine artifact, right? Divine artifacts existed in legends and had long been extinct in the divine land. Soon, the top 50 monstrous experts on the heaven list entered the 8th floor of the Heavenly Treasure Pagoda. They arrived at the 8th floor. Everyone was stunned, because there were only a few dozen items on the 8th floor. Chapter 308. Saint's Soul Heavenly Fruit. A spiritual fruit the size of a fist appeared in Lin Ye's sight. At this moment, Lin Ye's heart couldn't help but beat faster. He had seen the introduction of the Saint's Soul Heavenly Fruit in ancient books. It was a rare treasure of heaven and earth. Even in ancient times, it was a peerless treasure that could only be chanced upon. He didn't expect that there would be a Saint's Soul Heavenly Fruit on the 8th floor of the Treasure Heaven Pagoda. Saint's Soul Heavenly Fruit was useless to martial artists. It was a supreme treasure in the eyes of divine spiritual masters because it could improve and refine one's divine sense. If one was lucky, it could directly increase one's divine sense by 1 level. However, looking at the price, Lin Yi was also shocked. A Saint's Soul Heavenly Fruit actually cost 50 million heaven list points. For other experts, it was definitely not worth it. However, for Lin Yi, even 500 million heaven list points wasn't enough to describe the value of a Saint's Soul Heavenly Fruit. Now that his divine sense was at the peak of level 52, he had such a Saint's Soul Heavenly Fruit. His divine sense could at least reach the peak of level 53 in a short time. He could even rely on a Saint's Soul Heavenly Fruit to raise his divine sense to level 54. This way, his divine sense would be closer to becoming a divine sense saint. Once his divine sense reached level 54, he could even fight an ordinary saint without fear. "Captain, we'll go out first." "Captain, take your time." After an unknown amount of time, Zhang Xiaochu and the others left the 8th floor. Only Lin Yi and Nangong Xie were left on the 8th floor. At this moment, Lin Yi was in a dilemma. Should he use 50 million heaven list points to exchange for the Saint's Soul heavenly fruit, or should he save them for a supreme artifact? This question had been haunting him, making him hesitate. This was the first time in his life that he was troubled by this question. If he missed this opportunity, he would have to wait another year. Junior brother. Sometimes you have to look further. Sometimes you have to look closer. A virtuous cycle is better. Nangong Xie's sweet voice reached Lin Ye's ears, waking Lin Yi up. Soon, he understood Nangong Xiyu's intentions from her words. Moreover, he knew that Nangong Xiyu had discovered his current entanglement and had enlightened him, allowing him to walk out from his entanglement. Thank you, senior sister. Lin Yi raised his head and gave Nangong Xie a deep look. He had already decided in his heart. Without hesitation, he used 50 million heaven list points to exchange for a Saint's Soul heavenly fruit. He only had 34 million points left on the heaven list. After doing all this, he left the 8th floor with Nangong Xie and headed towards the 9th floor. Only the top 10 monstrous experts with honor points could enter the 9th floor. On the 9th floor, apart from Mu Zhili and Ruolanyu, the others were either Lin Ye's people or people who didn't have much relationship with Lin Yi. This person was naturally Nangong Xie. The 9th floor of the Heavenly Treasure Pagoda. It only opens once a year. Only the top 10 honor points were allowed to enter. When Lin Yi and Nangong Xie entered the 9th floor, they were completely dumbfounded. Zhang Xiaochu and the others were also dumbfounded. There were 20 to 30 items on the 9th floor. All of them were supreme sacred artifacts. The prices of these treasures were puzzling. The most expensive supreme sacred artifact was only 50,000 honor points, and the cheapest was only 5,000 honor points. Compared to the prices of the treasures on the first 8 floors, the prices here were completely beyond everyone's imagination. In their imagination, the treasures here were incomparably precious, and the prices were heaven-defying. However, the treasures here were indeed incomparably precious, but the prices were surprisingly low, which made them feel doubtful and couldn't believe the prices. The one with the most honor points was naturally Lin Yi. His honor points were 78,100. Nangong Xie had 60,000. Yang Yunxian, who was in 10th place, had 7,000. Everyone could buy one of the treasures here. Of course, they definitely couldn't buy the best and most expensive treasures. However, even the worst treasure here was a low-grade supreme sacred artifact. There were less than 5 supreme sacred artifacts in the entire cleansed heavens territory. Looking at the entire divine continent, supreme sacred artifacts were the pinnacle treasures. They were all used to guard families or sections. It was impossible for a single expert to have a supreme sacred artifact. The treasures here are for the first and second place. Each person can only buy one. The first place has 3, the second place has 2. After buying this time, you can't buy it again, unless you're in the top 3. Of course, honor points can be converted to heaven list points to buy the treasures on the 8th floor. If you buy the treasures on the 8th floor for the second time, you can only buy the treasures on the 7th floor for the next time. The top 3 are the exception. I'll give you 15 minutes to consider. If you want an item, the one with the highest ranking will have priority. On the 9th floor, the world spirit's voice sounded. After saying that, the voice disappeared. The entire 9th floor was incomparably quiet. After a short silence, the 10 people quickly sized up the treasures here and chose what they wanted to buy. Of course, the premise was that they had enough honor points. Also, it was based on their ranking. If the 8th and 9th place took a fancy to the same treasure at the same time, then the 8th place had to buy it first, and the 9th place could only give up. Senior sister, you don't have to buy this. When Lin Yi was choosing treasures, he saw Nangong Xie take a fancy to a ring. Lin Yi scanned it with his divine sense and discovered that this beautiful and simple ring was actually a spatial ring. As for how big it was, he wasn't sure. However, it was very expensive. It required 28,000 honor points. What's wrong? Nangong Xia's beautiful face revealed a curious expression. She looked at Lin Yi and asked, "What a waste of honor points and opportunities. This is for you." Seeing that no one was paying attention to them, Lin Yi took out a ring from the ninefold space. A spatial ring. Then, he handed it over to Nangong Xia. Nangong Xia was startled. She didn't know the meaning behind Lin Yi's words. She also didn't know why Lin Yi handed this ring over to her. An unknown blush appeared on her beautiful face. However, she still took it. Then, she scanned the ring with her divine sense, and a trace of surprise appeared on her face. That was because she discovered that Lin Yi gave her a spatial treasure. Her divine sense entered the spatial ring. She discovered that there was actually a spatial ring that was 10 miles in length, width, and height. It was much better than the spatial ring that cost 28,000 honor points on the 9th floor of the Heavenly Treasure Pagoda. "Little junior brother, is this for senior sister?" Nangong Xia was incomparably happy. She asked Lin Yi, wanting to confirm whether this was a gift from Lin Yi or not. "If senior sister wants to give me honor points, I won't be polite." Lin Yi smiled. "Many thanks, little junior brother." Nangong Xia was startled. Then, she reacted. This spatial ring was a gift from Lin Yi. Lin Yi's words just now were clearly a joke. Because in the Grand Xia World Ruins, honor points and heaven ranking points couldn't be privately traded. Chapter 309. Lin Yi gave her a spatial ring that was even better than the Treasure Sky Pagoda, so she was naturally overjoyed. She carefully put away the spatial ring. If she did not buy the spatial ring, she would have one more chance to choose other treasures, and could also save 28,000 honor points. After Lin Yi gave the spatial ring to Nangong Xia, he chose the treasures he wanted to buy. He was ranked first in honor points, so he had the right to buy 3 treasures. He had already made up his mind. He had to buy 3 treasures, even if it was slightly worse. Even if it was worse, it was still a supreme sacred artifact level treasure. Time passed by minute by minute. Lin Yi chose 3 treasures. After buying them, his honor points were only left with more than 3,000. When he finished buying, the others had also chosen their treasures. None of the treasures chosen by the 10 people were the same. Of course, Lin Yi knew that there would definitely be people who had their eyes on the same treasure at the same time. It was just that there was an invisible gap between them. Because, among the 10 people, other than Nangong Xia and him, 6 of the other 8 people were Lin Yi's people. Ruo Lanyu and Mu Zhili did not want to offend people who provoked Lin Yi, so they naturally did not want to use their rankings to suppress others. Zhang Xiaochu and the others would definitely not choose the same treasure. After buying the treasures, everyone left the 9th floor of the Treasure Sky Pagoda. This place opened once a year. If they wanted to enter again, they could only wait another year. Moreover, among them, they wouldn't be able to buy treasures on the 9th floor next year. Of course, there was no limit to the top 3 in the next year. Among the top 3, Lin Yi and Nangong Xia would definitely have a spot. As for Zhang Xiaochu and the others, they would have to compete with Ruo Lanyu. The secret realm will open in 10 days. Those with honor points, please be prepared. A huge light screen appeared in the sky above Tiny Spirit City. Golden words were displayed on the light screen. Everyone in Tiny Spirit City could see this huge light screen. The huge light screen did not dissipate for a long time in the sky. It only disappeared a day later. The powerhouses in Tiny Spirit City were already boiling, but most of them could only be envious. After all, there were only a few people who had honor points. Only those in the top 100 of the heavenly rankings would be rewarded with additional honor points. Even if there were fluctuations in the rankings, there were those who had entered the top 100 and then dropped out. Of course, there were still honor points. In this way, there were only 200 to 300 people who had honor points. Therefore, the number of people who went to the secret realm was only about 1/50th. Secret realms are heaven for peak experts. Although the secret realm is dangerous, the rewards are also unimaginable. It's a pity that we don't have enough honor points to teleport us to the hidden realm. In the world of the Grand Xia, a secret realm teleportation will be opened once a year. At other times, you can also use honor points to teleport. However, the secret realms that you teleport to usually aren't that good. Not so good? That's only for those top powerhouses. They don't care about it, and they don't want to waste time to earn heaven list points and honor points. Actually, the secret realms that we use honor points to teleport to are definitely heaven for us. It is said that in the world of Grand Xia, there are over 10 million low-level secret realms, over 100,000 mid-level secret realms, and over 10,000 high-level secret realms. However, there are only 8 top-level secret realms. Those who are in the top 20 with honor points can teleport to a top-level secret realm once. This is a place that even those with honor points can't go to. Top-level secret realms, sigh, it has long exceeded the scope of our imagination. In Wiling City, the discussion about the secret realms had long been heated. In fact, the monstrous experts who entered the world of the Grand Xia already knew a little about the secret realms when they were outside. As for whether they could obtain it, it would depend on their luck and strength. Lin Yi naturally knew that the teleportation to the secret realms was about to open. At this moment, the entire god-battling team was gathered in his castle. Everyone's eyes were on him. There was anticipation, hesitation, excitement, fear, and worry. They were naturally excited and proud to have the opportunity to enter the secret realms. However, there were many dangers in the secret realms. If they were not careful, they would vanish into thin air and never be able to come out. Opportunity and danger were always together. The greater the opportunity, the greater the danger. This was an unchanging law since time immemorial. Secret realm teleportation. We have all entered the top-level secret realms. This time, there are a few people who don't belong to our side. Therefore, we have to be careful. Of course, we have to be careful. Entering the secret realms is usually a random teleportation. Everyone, please be careful. As your captain, I should be leading you. However, in the secret realms, the rules do not allow it. Therefore, in the future, you can only rely on yourself. Only by relying on your own experiences of life and death can you become a true expert. Lin Yi pondered for a long time and said slowly, "It was naturally good to be able to meet in the secret realms. However, if they could not meet, they could only rely on themselves. He could not help them for the rest of their lives. If they wanted to be truly strong, they had to be reborn from the ashes and rely on themselves to grow through life and death. No one could help them with this. Captain, let's work hard together. After we come out of the secret realms, we will fight together. I hope that when we meet again, Captain, you will have become a half-saint. In the secret realms, we will only have 2 or 3 months. As long as we are not teleported to the secret realms of death, we will have a great chance of returning with a full load. I believe that the world of the Grand Xia will not send us to our death. There are still 10 days. Let's prepare well. I plan to go to the Celestial Treasure Pagoda and exchange my Heaven List points for useful elixirs and necessities. For this time, I will put all my wealth on the line. I cannot let myself have any regret." The third prince and the others knew that Lin Yi was right. In their hearts, they still hoped that they could be together. However, even if they could not be together, they had to work hard for their future and for their lives. Fortunately, they had obtained precious treasures under the altar last time. Today, they had obtained a supreme sacred weapon in the Celestial Treasure Pagoda. Even if they did not obtain any treasures, they still had Heaven List points to exchange for necessities. Prepare well. As your captain, This is your reward. Don't embarrass the god battling team. Lin Yi stretched out his hand. Some rings, necklaces, bracelets, and belts appeared in front of him. Captain, what are these? Lai Tenyu looked at the things that Lin Yi took out and could not help but be curious. Shouldn't they be rewarded with treasures, equipment, or cultivation methods? Why were they just some accessories? It looked a little awkward. The others had the same thought as Lai Tenyu. They all looked at Lin Yi. Take a look. Lin Yi smiled and waved his hand. 14 items flew to the third prince and the others. He did not give them a choice because Lin Yi did not have many space treasures with him. Under the puzzled gazes, they each took the items in front of them. They looked at them curiously. Soon, Zhuge Ling was the first to discover the secret. She had obtained a beautiful necklace. If the necklace was worn on her neck, it would definitely be beautiful. It was just right for her. However, as a woman, she was meticulous. She used her divine sense to scan the necklace. Chapter 310. Space Necklace. Zhuge Ling's sweet and clear voice sounded. She was extremely excited. When the others heard Zhuge Ling's voice, they couldn't help but be stunned, thinking that Zhuge Ling was confused. But driven by curiosity, they scanned the items in their hands with their divine senses. At this moment, everyone's expressions kept changing. They were surprised, excited, and thrilled. It's really a space treasure. A space treasure with a length, width, and height of 10 miles. A heaven-defying treasure. This is even better than the space ring on the 9th floor of the treasure pagoda. It's great. Captain, thank you. For the captain's reward, I have to become stronger and come back alive. Zhang Xiaochu, Xiao Yanqing, Yang Yunqian, and the others were all very excited. They looked at the items in their hands lovingly and carefully, for fear of breaking them. They were protecting them as if they were their precious treasures. Having a space treasure was the greatest wish of all experts. It was like a mortal who wanted to become a sage. However, even if a mortal could become a sage, he could not fulfill his wish of having a space treasure, because space treasures had long been extinct in the Divine Land. Even if there were, they were in the hands of those top forces. It was undoubtedly a dream to get a space treasure, and it was even impossible to get one. However, they did not expect that Lin Yi would give them a space treasure. No matter what the future is like, as long as I'm your captain, I only hope that you can become stronger and come back alive. Every time I go on an adventure, the elders will tell me that where there is life, there is hope. Survival is victory. Why do we work hard to cultivate and go against the heavens? It's all for the sake of living longer and more freely. Lin Yi finished speaking. Then he closed his eyes slightly and began to cultivate. This was a signal for the third prince and the others to leave. Everyone looked at Lin Yi. They all stood up, bowed slightly, and left Lin Ye's castle without saying anything. Where there is life, there is hope. Lin Ye's words sent waves of shock through their hearts. Their elders were stronger than Lin Yi, but they had never said such words. However, Lin Yi treated them as if they were his family. Lin Ye's words were even more precious than the spatial treasures Lin Yi gave them. He watched as Zhang Xiaochu and the others left. Lin Yi opened his eyes. With a thought, he took out the 3 treasures. At the same time, he called Silent Spirit out. Young master. Silent Soul came out and bowed. He stood at the side, waiting for Lin Ye's orders. Although she didn't break through to the half-saint realm while practicing in the ninefold space, her dark domain had reached 40,000 Dao and light domain had reached 18,000 Dao. He had successfully cultivated the Book of Darkness. His strength had reached a terrifying level. Even Lin Yi might not be her match now. This treasure is for you to refine and use. I will enter the secret realm in 10 days. You can break through to the half-saint realm in there. Lin Yi picked up one of the treasures in front of him and handed it to Silent Soul. This was one of the 3 treasures he bought in the Heavenly Treasure Pagoda, the Source of Darkness. Low-grade supreme sacred artifact, the source of darkness. It was suitable for Silent Soul to use. Supreme sacred artifact. Refining it in the ninefold space was disadvantageous to the ninefold space. At least for now. He didn't dare to let Silent Soul use the supreme sacred artifact in the ninefold space, unless he opened the sixth seal of the ninefold space. Supreme sacred artifact. Silent Soul also realized that this sacred artifact was extraordinary, but he wasn't sure what level it was. He could only guess, but he still didn't believe it. After all, supreme sacred artifacts were too rare. Even the Celestial Fox clan only had one supreme sacred artifact. Because of that supreme sacred artifact, other clans didn't dare to provoke the Celestial Fox clan. In other words, the Celestial Fox clan relied on that supreme sacred artifact to survive. It's a low-grade supreme sacred artifact. But don't use it carelessly. Be careful of the backlash. Lin Yi nodded. Supreme sacred artifact. Only powerful saints dared to use it. Celestial realm cultivators didn't even dare to touch it. Even a half-saint would suffer from the backlash if they weren't careful. Even if it was just a low-grade supreme sacred artifact. Silent Soul knows. Silent Soul nodded, took the source of darkness and walked into a random room. The castle. There were many big and small rooms. Not to mention Silent Soul, even 100 people could live in it. While Silent Soul was refining the supreme sacred artifact, Lin Yi also began to refine the remaining two supreme sacred artifacts. Supreme Heaven Suppression Cauldron. Middle grade supreme sacred artifact. It was the best of the three supreme sacred artifacts he bought. This supreme sacred artifact was mainly for defense. It had a magical power. It was invincible as a sex treasure. He happened to have the 9 Cauldrons God Suppression martial technique. With the heaven-suppressing Supreme Cauldron, his defense was invincible. Even if he used it to attack, it could flatten a mountain range. 3 days of continuous refining. The heaven-suppressing Supreme Cauldron was finally refined. The stronger the treasure, the harder it was to refine and fuse it into one. Not to mention he had the Divine Sword Constitution and the Divine Sword in his body. Refining the heaven-suppressing Supreme Cauldron in 3 days was already heaven-defying. However, although the refining was successful, it didn't mean that he could control it. In order to unleash its power, he had to slowly refine it. After refining the heaven-suppressing Supreme Cauldron, Lin Yi didn't stop. A drop of blood essence was offered. The blood essence was pointed at the other supreme sacred artifact. Low-grade supreme sacred artifact, Crimson Flames. Broadsword. The sword was as wide as a palm and 5 feet long. The sword exuded a destructive aura. Just the saint aura of this supreme sacred artifact was enough to kill anyone below the half-saint realm. It took him a day to refine the Crimson Flames successfully. It was mainly because he had the Divine Sword Constitution and had 10,000 sword domains. Both supreme sacred artifacts had been successfully refined. If he wanted to truly unleash their power, it would be a matter for the future. He couldn't do it for the time being. It would take a long time to nurture it. It couldn't be done in a short time. On this day, when Lin Yi was about to cultivate the 9 Cauldrons God Suppression martial technique, Biluo woke up from her deep sleep. She saw the golden page in Lin Ye's sea of consciousness immediately and couldn't help but be stunned. This reaction made Lin Yi curious. Something that could make Biluo stunned was definitely not ordinary. Where did this come from? Biluo took the initiative to communicate with Lin Yi. She asked Lin Yi. In her words, she was referring to the golden page. I got it from the altar. Why, do you know this thing? Lin Yi was energized. He had a lot of things to ask Biluo. Now that Biluo had woken up, he was naturally happy. Speaking of the golden page, he couldn't help but feel a little depressed. After opening the altar, everyone else got treasures, but he got unknown responsibilities and worries. Chapter 3:11. You really know how to stir up trouble. This is one of the 9 great divine books of the universe, the wordless heavenly book. However, you've only gotten 1 page. Bai Luo took a deep breath, calming herself down from the shock. She never expected to see the wordless heavenly book, one of the 9 great divine books of the universe, in Lin Ye's Sea of Consciousness. The wordless heavenly book was the most magical and mysterious. It was a pity that Lin Yi had only gotten 1 page. It would be amazing if he could get the complete wordless heavenly book. The 9 great divine books. The wordless heavenly book. What exactly is it? Lin Yi was in a daze. He didn't know what the 9 great divine books were. Biluo made it sound so magical, but in the end, he still didn't understand what the wordless heavenly book was for him. What he wanted to know the most now was about the wordless heavenly book. The 9 great divine books aren't something you can come into contact with now, because you're too far away from them. Even if you were given another 10 million years, you might not be able to come into contact with them. It won't do you any good to know now. Since it's the wordless heavenly book, how would I know? Only when you collect the complete wordless heavenly book will you know its uses and secrets. If I'm not wrong, there should be 9 altars when you were involved in a monstrous conspiracy. Perhaps the wordless heavenly book can be found in the other 8 altars. Once you integrate the complete wordless heavenly book, the truth will be revealed. Biluo said unhappily. She was indeed powerful in the past. However, she hadn't come into contact with the 9 great divine books, let alone the most mysterious and magical wordless heavenly book. Do you know about the 9 heavens court? Lin Yi pondered for a while and asked Biluo. He told Biluo everything that happened after he entered the altar, hoping that Biluo could help him. I've heard of it. It's the land of law in the lower major world. The wordless heavenly book appeared in the lower major world, so it should have fallen in the great Xia world. This is a conspiracy, because the 9 great divine books can't fall in the lower major world by themselves. The wordless heavenly book is in the world of Grand Xia, but the world of Grand Xia has been buried. If you want to know the truth, you'd better collect the textless heavenly book. Dispersing the textless heavenly book is the most common concealment method. If I wasn't in your sea of consciousness, I wouldn't have discovered that you had the textless heavenly book. The previous ruler of the Grand Xia must have been afraid that his enemies would discover the wordless heavenly book. That's why he separated it. Biluo analyzed what Lin Yi had seen and heard. He voiced out his thoughts. The only truth could only be discovered after the wordless heavenly book was collected. Lice are no longer itchy. Take it one step at a time. I just need to become stronger. Lin Yi took a deep breath. There were already countless unknown secrets on his body. One more wordless heavenly book wouldn't make much of a difference. At most, he would just vanish into thin air. Could there be something more terrifying than vanishing into thin air? The master that he had never met. The previous life of the divine master. There was also the heaven's will fan. So what if there was one more wordless heavenly book? Your Earth-type Great Sage's blood. When fusing, first suppress the other 4 types. The other 4 types of domains have reached 10,000. Naturally, the Earth-type Great Sage's blood can't be fused. Refine the Earth-type Great Sage's blood and cultivate the Earth-type domain to 10,000. Then, cast the other 4 types. Biluo seemed to know what Lin Yi wanted to ask her. Before Lin Yi could speak, she said it first. This was also the problem she saw from Lin Ye's cultivation situation. According to Lin Ye's cultivation speed, Lin Yi should have been a semi-sage by now. However, she saw that not only was Lin Yi not a semi-sage, but he also hadn't completely refined and fused the 5 types of Great Sage's blood. He probably didn't know how to refine and fuse the Earth-type Great Sage's blood. I see. Lin Yi was suddenly enlightened. No wonder no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't refine and fuse the Earth-type Great Sage's blood. It turned out that he didn't find the correct method. Now that he knew the reason, his confusion was immediately solved. Without any hesitation, he stood up and walked towards the Tower of Time. There were still 5 days before he had to enter the secret realm. During these 5 days, he would refine and fuse the Earth-type Great Sage's blood in the Tower of Time. If he missed these few days, he would have to wait until he came back from the secret realm. In the secret realm, everything was unknown. The stronger he was, the more likely he would be to come out alive. The stronger he was, the more likely he would be to survive. On the 4th floor of the Tower of Time, Lin Yi entered the 9-layer space. The time ratio was stacked. According to Biluo's instructions, he suppressed the metal, wood, water, and fire domains and focused on refining the Earth-type Great Sage's blood. Sure enough, without the presence of the first 4 elements, the Earth-type Great Sage's blood was easily refined and fused. After refining and fusing the Great Sage's blood, Lin Yi hurried to the chaotic divine tree to cultivate the Earth-type domain. In 6 years, he had obtained 10,000 Dao in the Earth-type domain. Now, the 5 domains of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth had reached 10,000 Dao. It was time to fuse. Fusing the 5 elements to form the great perfection of the 5 element. In the 9-layer space, the 5 domains emitted colorful brilliance. They were magical and dazzling. They repelled each other, but they also fused and complemented each other. It was a magical world. Lin Yi didn't dare to be careless. He focused all his attention on the fusion of the 5 domains. Time passed by minute. After 3 months, he finally fused the 5 domains. The great perfection of the 5 element. The fusion of the 5 domains formed a unique and powerful domain. In this domain, metal, wood, water, fire, and earth could be used at the same time or separately. Although the 5-elemental domain only had 10,000 Dao paths, its power was many times stronger than a single domain with 50,000 Dao paths. Finally, I succeeded. Lin Yi muttered to himself. He couldn't hide the excitement on his face. After such a long time, the 5 elements domain had finally reached the great perfection. Of course, there was still a long way to go to fuse all 9 drops of the Great Sage's blood. It might be something that he couldn't accomplish in his lifetime. However, now that the 5 elements domain had been fused, he could break through to the semi-sage realm. If he reached the semi-sage realm, he would soar to the sky. Even if he encountered a sage, he could fight. This was the power of the 5 elements domain, and also the power of his semi-sage realm. In other words, his strength was limited by his realm. He looked at the time. He was very close to the teleportation of the secret realm. He didn't dare to delay and hurriedly left the Tower of Time. When he left the Tower of Time, there were already powerhouses gathering in the central square of Tiny Spirit City. Because the teleportation of the secret realm was at the central square of Tiny Spirit City. Lin Ye's figure flashed and quickly returned to his castle. After calling Silent Soul into the 9-layer space, he didn't stop and walked towards the central square. When he arrived at the central square, countless powerhouses had already gathered here. Almost all the powerhouses in Tiny Spirit City were gathered here. Although 95% of the powerhouses here couldn't enter the secret realm, they were all here to broaden their horizons. Maybe it would be their turn next year. Chapter 312. Captain, this way. Zhang Xiaochu and the rest were the first to notice Lin Ye's arrival, because they went to Lin Ye's castle. However, Lin Yi was not in the castle, causing them to search for a long time. They had no choice but to come to the central square first. Otherwise, everyone would miss the time to teleport to the secret realm. They were all very happy to see Lin Yi. Under countless envious gazes, Lin Yi walked to Zhang Xiaochu's side. At the edge of the altar in the central square, there were only about 200 people. These 200 people all had honor points and could use the teleportation portal to go to the secret realm. Except for the top 20 who will go to the top-level secret realm. The rest can choose their destination. Each secret realm only has 2 months. After 2 months, you must return to Tiny Spirit City, otherwise you will stay in the secret realm forever. Remember. Now, the secret realm teleportation begins. Get ready. At the edge of the altar, a guardian spoke. He explained the simple rules of the secret realm teleportation. After speaking, he activated the altar's teleportation portal. Next to the portal, there was the amount of honor points required to enter the portal. Low-level secret realm, 100 honor points. Mid-level secret realm, 1000 honor points. High-level secret realm, 10,000 honor points. Top-level secret realms did not have honor points requirements, but there was a fixed quota. That was, only the top 20 on the honor points list could enter. If anyone outside the top 20 entered, they would be killed by the guardian. Soon, the 200 people below had chosen the secret realm to go to. Except for Lin Yi and the rest, the top 20 entered the top-level secret realm. Only 8 people entered the mid-level secret realm. The rest all entered the low-level secret realm. It was obvious how difficult it was to obtain honor points. Even Lin Yi did not have enough honor points to enter the high-level secret realm after purchasing 3 treasures. If he was not in the top 20, he could only choose the mid-level secret realm now. The powerhouses who entered the low-level secret realm stepped into the portal one by one. Finally, they disappeared. A moment later, the portal to the low-level secret realm closed. Next was the mid-level secret realm. Only 8 powerhouses entered the mid-level secret realm. In a few breaths, all of them were teleported away. At the edge of the altar, only 20 people, including Lin Yi, were left. Among these 20 people, 15 were Lin Ye's men. They felt that this top-level secret realm teleportation was prepared for Lin Yi and the others. It could be said that they had monopolized the top-level secret realms, and countless cultivators were envious of them. The powerhouses of the Tianyang Empire felt proud, envious, and regretful. If he had chosen to follow Lin Yi back then, it would have been a turning point in his fate. Now, the people who followed Lin Yi were high and mighty, leaving them far behind. They believed that after going through the top-level secret realm, they would be on a completely different level from Lin Yi and the others. Finally, someone understood. Choice was a form of strength. It was also a kind of luck. If he made the right choice, he would soar into the sky. If he made the wrong choice, he would be doomed eternally. Captain, good luck. Captain, we're leaving. Captain, take care. Captain, I hope you'll become a half-saint when you return. Zhang Xiaochu and the others saw that Lin Yi wasn't going to be the first to enter the secret realm, so they walked towards the teleportation gate on the altar. They entered the teleportation gate and bade farewell to Lin Yi. Everyone respected him from the bottom of their hearts. Countless powerhouses saw this. They were curious and envious. They didn't know how Lin Yi did it. In the hearts of countless powerhouses, Lin Yi had been regarded as a mysterious existence. Senior sister, let's go. Lin Yi watched as everyone entered the teleportation gate one by one. At the edge of the altar, only he and Nangong Xie were left. He said to Nangong Xie with a faint smile on his face. He didn't care about entering the secret realm at all. At his state of mind, he had already reached the point where he couldn't show his emotions. Let's go. Nangong Xie nodded, and a sweet smile appeared on her peerlessly beautiful face. This smile made everything pale in comparison. All the powerhouses in the square couldn't help but feel their hearts tremble, and their eyes revealed infatuation. Under the envious gazes of countless people, Lin Yi and Nangong Xie walked side by side and entered the teleportation gate. The altar regained its calm. Countless powerhouses were discussing in low voices. In the ancient times of the Great Xia world, top-level secret realms were places where the disciples of the super forces of the Great Xiao world went to train. There were countless opportunities inside, but there was also a corresponding danger. Every person who came out of the top-level secret realms would definitely become a peerless powerhouse. How vast was the Great Xiao world? However, there were only 8 top-level secret realms. One could imagine how difficult it was to enter the top-level secret realms. It was as difficult as the monstrous geniuses of the 2 great empires of the heavenly purification territory entering the Great Xiao world. It was even 1,000 times more difficult than the monstrous geniuses of the 2 great empires entering the Great Xiao world. The 2 great empires and the 8 foreign races had more than 2,000 slots to enter the Great Xiao world each time, and the monstrous geniuses of the Great Xiao world only had 20 slots each time. Whoosh! After entering the teleportation gate, Lin Ye's entire body was wrapped in light, making him unable to resist. He couldn't even move his fingers. He could only let the teleportation power send him deeper. After an unknown amount of time, the light on Lin Ye's body disappeared, and his eyes brightened up. He was suspended in the air. Feeling suspended in the air, Lin Yi subconsciously stabilized his body, suspended in the air, and looked around. Soon, he figured out that he was in a place similar to an underground palace. Because the air here was a little low, there was no sky above, only hard stone walls. What kind of secret realm is this? Lin Yi couldn't help but shake his head. He had entered a secret realm before, but it was completely different from the one in front of him. Secret realms. The so-called secret realms were independent small worlds or some dangerous places. However, there was also a sky and a land. It was definitely not a place similar to an underground palace like this. He slowly descended. With a thought, he called Silent Soul out from the ninefold space. Silent Soul appeared beside Lin Yi and looked around. "Master, what is this place?" Silent Soul asked curiously. "I'm not sure either. After the secret realm teleportation, I appeared here," Lin Yi said. He extended his divine sense, but the end of his divine sense was still the same. There was no change at all. This made Lin Yi completely stunned. His divine sense was at the peak of level 52, and everything within 100 miles was within his control. Just now, his divine sense extended over 100 miles, and he didn't find anything. It was as if the whole world was in front of him. "Master, wait a minute. Let me try using the dark domain." Just as Lin Yi was about to move forward, Silent Soul said. After that, the dark domain was activated. At this moment, the whole world was pitch black. There was no light, and even divine sense was cut off. The overwhelming darkness spread into the distance. Lin Yi and Silent Soul were in the darkness. Silent Soul was like a goddess in the darkness, controlling the light and darkness of this world. Time passed by, second by second. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.